Chapter 371. Third update. On the way to the detention center in a mountain behind the police station, Song Jiwon couldn't help but ask, Director Zhou, what exactly is the 8th prison? Zhou Lubo turned his head and looked at the two young people behind He Wenjua. Duan Xueqing was still okay, but Song Jiwon, who had been in the officialdom for 2 years, had a strong official aura. Zhou Lubo could clearly feel it. Because He Wenjua's identity was not ordinary, Zhou Lubo bluntly explained to Song Jiwon the significance of the 8th prison. With every sentence he said, Song Jiwon's face became more and more ashen, while Duan Xueqing's face became paler. Her worry for poplar fruit was difficult to suppress. Director, the young police officer weakly interrupted and asked, should we inform the people inside first? Mr. Yang is so young. I'm afraid, yes. Those are all serious criminals. Director Zhou, quickly let the police officers in the detention center bring poplar fruit out first. I'm afraid something will happen. Aya, why didn't you say so earlier? Zhou Lubo patted his head. He was really scared and didn't think of this point. He quickly took out his phone and prepared to make a call. He Wenjua glanced at the gate of the detention center and smiled as he pressed down on Zhou Lubo's phone. Among the group of people, He Wenjua was the calmest. He shook his head. No need. We're almost at the gate. Just pick him up and that'll be enough. Big brother He. Song Jiwon shouted anxiously. Huh? He Wenjua looked back at Song Jiwon and laughed. You probably don't know what kind of person your brother is, right? Song Jiwon looked at He Wenjua in confusion. He Wenjua calmly said, don't worry. Few people in Sheep City can beat him barehanded. You'll know when we get there. After entering the detention center, He Wenjua asked Song Jiwon, Duan Xueqing, and Lu Ku to wait in the office outside. He, Zhou Lubo, and the young policemen were led in by the prison guard captain on duty. Captain Wu, is everything okay? The young police officer could not help but ask the prison guard who led the way in a soft voice. Because he often escorted prisoners down here, he often interacted with the prison guards here. He was quite familiar with the one in front of him. Captain Wu turned his head and looked at Zhou Lubo and the others. He hesitated for a moment and shook his head. Although he didn't know any of them except for Zhou Lubo, he could feel that they were all important figures. He still concealed the details of the previous storm. Anyway, the result was that nothing happened. Poplar Fruit heard a flurry of footsteps outside and gently opened his eyes. The others did not have as good hearing as Poplar Fruit. They only sat up when they heard the sound of the door opening. The prison guard captain walked in and saw the new arrangement of beds in Section 8. His eyes flashed with a trace of shock. However, he did not show it. He only looked at the name on the record book in his hand and shouted, Poplar Fruit, you can come out now. Poplar Fruit directly jumped down from the top bunk and landed silently. Big Black also jumped down with a bang, causing the floor to shake. The prison guard captain was still afraid of Big Black. When he saw Big Black jump down, he immediately put his right hand into the holster on his waist and shouted, Old Black Song, what are you doing? When he shouted, Zhou Lubo, who was worried that something might happen, also squeezed in. The young policeman looked at He Wenjua, who was standing outside without moving. He felt strange. He tiptoed and looked in over Zhou Lubo's shoulder. The big black guy grinned and said, Don't be nervous, I just want to say goodbye. Poplar Fruit looked at him quietly. The big black guy took a deep look at Yonghua and said, You are the strongest person I have ever seen. I, Old Black Song, have never met a worthy opponent since I left the army, until I met you here. Poplar Fruit smiled gently and said, You are also very strong. I beat you by luck. You are indeed stronger than me. Big Black sighed with emotion. He lowered his head and said, I really want to fight with you a few more times. Unfortunately, my crime is too serious. The next time we meet, we can only wait for the next life. Poplar Fruit did not know what to say. He was silent for a moment and said softly, Take care. Okay. Big Black Song saluted Poplar Fruit and did not say anything else. He quietly climbed back to his upper bunk and lay down. Under the surprised eyes of the prison guard captain and Zhou Lubo, Poplar Fruit walked past them with his head held high. He walked out of the 8th prison, where he had only stayed for less than half a day. Including the young policeman, They all remembered Hee-Wonjua's calm smile and his meaningful words. Big brother. After walking out, Poplar Fruit saw Hee-Wonjua looking at him with a faint smile and shouted with gratitude. Let's go. We will talk when we get back. Hee-Wonjua put his hand on Poplar Fruit's shoulder. Big brother, my clothes are a bit smelly. Smelly my ass? Hee-Wonjua laughed heartily. When I was on a mission, what dirty and smelly place have I not squatted in? The two of them put some distance between them and the three people behind them. Hee-Wonjua began to whisper. Poplar Fruit, you are good. You still haven't gotten rid of the Zheng family's daughter, and there is another beauty outside crying for you. Poplar Fruit looked at him and did not know whether to laugh or cry, and said, Don't talk nonsense. Those two are just my friends. Hee-Wonjua curled his lips and said in disbelief, If they are just friends, why would you fight for her? Why would you be locked up in prison? Poplar Fruit said speechlessly, Even if you see injustice on the road, you will still help, let alone friends? Big brother, your mind is too dirty. At the door, Hee-Wonjua did not continue to entangle with Poplar Fruit on this issue. He did not have much interest in the love between men and women. Olgua, Song Jiwen saw Poplar Fruit from afar and hurriedly rushed over. Duan Shiweching also had tears in her eyes when she saw Poplar Fruit with disheveled hair walk out of the iron gate. You didn't lose any parts, right? Song Jiwen nervously touched Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit smiled and slapped his hand away. It's fine. Didn't I come out in one piece? He was indeed fine, except that his abdomen was a little black from the electric shock. However, Poplar Fruit did not plan to say it out loud, afraid that they would be worried. I'm sorry. Duan Shiweching slowly walked over. Her icy cold Lu Yu Mei had now softened, and because of the tears in her eyes, she looked even more beautiful. Poplar Fruit laughed and comforted her, saying, What are you talking about? You didn't do anything wrong. Why are you apologizing? Walking out of the gloomy detention center, although it was only half a day, Poplar Fruit looked at the sun and green plants outside and felt a little emotional. It felt good to see the light of day again. Chapter 372. Fourth update. Hee-Wonjua told Poplar Fruit not to worry about what happened after that. He left Poplar Fruit's recording, as well as Hu Chuanxiang's confession, to Lucas Shou. Lucas Shou would investigate this matter thoroughly. Poplar Fruit jumped into his car. Song Jiwen suggested that after Poplar Fruit was released from prison, he had to eat a meal to get over his shock. Big brother, he agreed, so Poplar Fruit had to agree. But before that, Poplar Fruit had to go back to school. He was very anxious. He had left early in the morning, and it was already sunset. Poplar Fruit hadn't seen his daughter for a whole day, so he was very worried. Plus, he had lied to Fong Bei, saying that he was only going to see the tutor, but he had been gone for so long. He was very anxious. His phone had run out of battery, and there was no charger in the car. He could only suppress his uneasiness and drive quickly. Oh yeah, why did you guys arrive so late? Poplar Fruit was waiting for a traffic light when he thought of this question. He turned his head and asked Song Jiwen, who was in the passenger's seat. You're still asking? Song Jiwen was speechless. You couldn't get through to Brother Song's phone. We called him the whole morning, but no one picked up. Then how did you find him? Poplar Fruit asked, puzzled. Luckily, we found out that there was still Mrs. He's number in the phone when there was still a little bit of battery left. Through her, we found Big Brother He. Song Jiwen laughed. So, Big Brother He is from the army. Poplar Fruit roughly understood what had happened. Big Brother He must have been training in the army that day, so his phone was turned off. Then, when Ji Xiaoyan found out that something had happened to her, she ran directly to the army to call Hee-Wonjua out. No matter what, they had rescued Poplar Fruit in the end. Poplar Fruit wouldn't have to stay in the detention center for the night. Poplar Fruit was a little depressed. Song Jiwen and Duan Shiweching's phones were both Android phones. The charging cable for the phones was different from the one for Poplar Fruit's iPhone, so Poplar Fruit couldn't charge his phone at the moment. Luckily, in less than 20 minutes, Poplar Fruit drove to the teacher's dormitory. Because Big Brother He and the others were with him this time, Poplar Fruit didn't park his car at the school anymore. Wait a minute, I'll go up to pick up Kiki and change my clothes. Poplar Fruit said to them with a smile, then quickly ran upstairs. Poplar Fruit opened the door with the key and found that the two little ones were already standing there to welcome him. It must have been Gold who found him first. Poplar Fruit saw his daughter standing next to Gold with a smile. She raised her head, stretched out her hand, and called happily, "Papa." The incandescent light in the living room wasn't turned on, but a small yellow light was turned on. Poplar Fruit could see that the beautiful girl was standing under the light, biting her lower lip and looking at him. "Bebe." Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Bebe apologetically, and a wave of guilt surged in his heart. "Papa." Kiki found that her father didn't pay attention to her. She was a little dissatisfied and called out again, "Kiki wants a hug." Poplar Fruit rubbed his daughter's hair, walked in, and said, "Not now, Dad stinks." Hearing this, Kiki sniffed hard, fanned her little hand in front of her nose, pouted her little mouth, and said, "Smelly, smelly Papa, smelly Papa." Fong Bebe saw that Poplar Fruit's clothes were a little messy and his hair was a little messy. Her heart softened and she asked softly, "Where did you go today? How did you become like this?" "Nothing, I just want to do something," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Poplar Fruit didn't intend to tell her. First, he was afraid that Fong Bebe would be worried. Second, because of today's matter and the existence of Duan Shueching, Poplar Fruit wouldn't be stupid enough to speak without thinking. "Wait a minute, I'm going to take a shower first." Poplar Fruit had long been tired of the stench of the detention center, so he quickly took a set of clothes and went into the bathroom. After taking off his clothes, Poplar Fruit looked in the mirror at the scorched part of his abdomen that was poked by the electric baton. He touched it and found that it didn't hurt anymore, but the black color seemed to be the color of the epidermal cells that were burned by the electric baton. It couldn't be washed off and could only be removed slowly by metabolism. After a quick shower, Poplar Fruit changed into a set of clean clothes and quickly walked out of the bathroom. "You're back. I'm going back to the dormitory." Fong Bebe had already packed her bag and was sitting there. When she saw Poplar Fruit come out, she stood up and said, "Bebe, wait a minute." Poplar Fruit picked up Kiki, who rushed over and quickly blocked in front of Fong Bebe. After the shower, Poplar Fruit's body had a strong soap fragrance. Fong Bebe, who was close to him, blushed a little. However, under the soft yellow light, it didn't look so obvious. Poplar Fruit looked at the seemingly weak and beautiful girl and said very apologetically, "Bebe, today, I'm really sorry. I didn't come back at noon as I said." "It's okay." Fong Bebe shook her head. "I have a few friends waiting for me downstairs. They're going to eat. Do you want to come?" Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Bebe with some hope. Poplar Fruit has already met Fong Bebe's friends and roommates. Not to mention anything else, he has already invited them to eat several times. However, Fong Bebe has no intention of getting involved in Poplar Fruit's circle of friends. Until now, Poplar Fruit hasn't introduced his friends to her. Fong Bebe didn't want to meet Poplar Fruit's eyes. She hesitated, shook her head, and said, "No, I already ate today." Poplar Fruit didn't force her. He took a charging cable, carried his daughter, and took Gold. He followed Fong Bebe downstairs. Opening the door downstairs, Fong Bebe and Poplar Fruit walked out. She saw Poplar Fruit's car at a glance. "I'll send you back," Poplar Fruit said softly. Fong Bebe didn't answer. She stood there and stared at Poplar Fruit's car for 2 seconds. Song Jiwen and the others waited for 10 minutes. They were a little bored. Song Jiwen heard a bang. He looked up and saw Poplar Fruit. He couldn't help but shout, "They're coming down." However, just as the words left his mouth, Song Jiwen regretted it. He saw the girl next to Poplar Fruit. Duan Shueching also saw her. She was sitting in the back seat. In order to enjoy the cool summer night, the window just happened to be open. Just like that, she heard the sound and turned her head. She just happened to meet Fong Bebe's eyes for a moment. Duan Shueching couldn't see Fong Bebe's face from afar. However, from the outline and blurry appearance, she must be a very beautiful girl. She could see Poplar Fruit's movements and sighed slightly in her heart. Whether it was Song Jiwen or Duan Shueching, from Poplar Fruit's every move, they could see that Poplar Fruit cared about that girl. Fong Beibei saw Duan Xueqing in Poplar Fruit's car. She was stunned for 2 seconds. However, she recovered very quickly. Her expression was as if nothing had happened. She shook her head at Poplar Fruit and said with a smile, "No need. I used to walk back. I'll walk back." "Okay." Poplar Fruit hugged his daughter and watched Fong Beibei walk down the quiet path. Her back gradually disappeared into the darkness. Chapter 373. Fifth update. Hu Wenjue made his move, and things progressed surprisingly quickly. First of all, Hu Chuanxiang and Ma Kai were removed from their posts and investigated. The two of them had done a lot of dirty things behind their backs, and it was only a matter of time before they ended up in jail. Gu Shida couldn't escape either. He had done a lot of similar things before, and at that time he had relied on his connections to suppress them. This time, Lu Keshou directly exposed him. According to the recording provided by Poplar Fruit, he reopened Gu Shida's previous record. Lu Keshou was indeed a criminal investigator. He had people arrest Wang Chanyuan directly. Wang Chanyuan, who couldn't be a tough nut to crack, suddenly became the breakthrough in Gu Shida's case. In less than 2 days, all the dirty things Gu Shida had done in the past were revealed. His uncle, Gu Ziwei, wanted to protect his nephew, but in the end he was also involved. It was not hard to imagine that Gu Shida could be so arrogant because Gu Ziwei was backing him up. Gu Shida's background was not clean, but how could Gu Ziwei be clean? In just a few days, Poplar Fruit saw the news in the newspaper brought back by Song Jiwen that Gu Ziwei had been investigated for serious violations of discipline. "You brought this upon yourself," Song Jiwen said triumphantly. "This is a lesson for you," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Learn from your mistakes." "Nonsense." Song Jiwen pushed Yongguo's hand and scolded with a smile. "You are the one who should learn from your mistakes. I am an upright and clean official. Okay? I mean the relationship between men and women." Poplar Fruit smiled strangely. "I'm quite worried about the girls in your unit." "Well, I have no desires now. You should worry about me." Song Jiwen shook his head. "Now, I'm only interested in food. By the way, what delicious food are you making today?" Hearing the key words in Song Jiwen's words, Kiki ran over and looked hopefully at Poplar Fruit. "Fish head tofu soup." Poplar Fruit picked up his daughter and smiled. "Kiki's favorite." "Yeah." Kiki happily raised her little hand and kissed her father on the cheek, leaving a lot of saliva. Poplar Fruit had only recently discovered that among all the ingredients that Kiki had, fish was her favorite. No matter if it was saltwater fish or freshwater fish, steamed fish or pan-fried fish, as long as it was made by her father, Kiki could eat it all. As for cooking fish soup, it was second only to steaming and could preserve the freshness of the fish to the greatest extent. It was one of Chi-Chi's favorite ways to eat it. "Why is it tofu again?" Song Jiwen said dejectedly. "There's still sweet and sour pork ribs." Poplar Fruit smiled. Of course, he wouldn't just make fish soup. Other than sweet and sour pork ribs, he also wanted to make vegetables. "Really?" Song Jiwen's eyes lit up. Actually, Kiki quite liked the taste of sweet and sour pork ribs, but because she couldn't chew on the pork ribs, she could only look at the pork ribs and drool. Hence, Poplar Fruit planned to feed Kiki with rice before serving the pork ribs. Poplar Fruit was busy in the kitchen, chopping the fish head noisily. Song Jiwen leaned against the kitchen door and asked, "Where's Xueqing? Why didn't you call her over when you made a big meal today?" Poplar Fruit raised his head and smiled at Song Jiwen. He said, "She went home to relax." This was what Duan Xueqing had told Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit didn't think too much about it. After a thrilling day, Duan Xueqing didn't go to work again. She later resigned, as she had said in the restaurant. Civil servant was the most popular profession in China. Every year, millions of people tried their best to get in. Duan Xueqing was admitted. After working for less than a year, she resigned without any attachment. Song Jiwen tried to persuade her, but Poplar Fruit didn't. He felt that Duan Xueqing's resignation was right. With Duan Xueqing's personality, she wasn't suitable for such a job. Although Gu Shida had been arrested, in a place like that, who knew if another Wu Shida or Zhang Shida would come tomorrow? Poplar Fruit didn't object. Instead, he encouraged her. He smiled and said to Duan Xueqing, "It's okay. You can go back and be a translator. You'll definitely make more money." Duan Xueqing didn't smile at that time. It wasn't because she rarely had emotional fluctuations. It was because there was an idea in Duan Xueqing's heart that was swaying left and right. She thought about it for a long time. The girl she saw downstairs of the teacher's apartment that day had shaken her expectations for Poplar Fruit. She could see that Poplar Fruit cared a lot about that girl. He didn't even care about Lu Yinran that much. Duan Xueqing was still thinking about whether her love for Poplar Fruit was real love. Poplar Fruit was just as he said. He showed her the care and concern of a friend. Furthermore, it was just the care and concern of a brother and sister. It had nothing to do with love. As for Duan Xueqing herself, she seemed to be confused by this relationship. She was very attached to Yanghua. She was attached to him because he protected her with all his might and took care of her gently. Maybe there was a little love, but Duan Xueqing wasn't very sure. The more she thought about it, the more confused she became. Duan Xueqing didn't go to work for a few days. She stayed at home and stared blankly out the window, thinking about something. Poplar Fruit didn't know that Duan Xueqing's mother had come to visit, and Duan Xueqing didn't tell her either. Although Mrs. Duan later confirmed that her daughter was fine over the phone, she was still worried and came over. Mrs. Duan didn't care about work at all. The Duan family had a big business. Even if Duan Xueqing, the only daughter of the Duan family, didn't work, she could live a carefree life. She was more concerned about Duan Xueqing's love life. Duan Xueqing wanted to hide it at first, but Duan Xueqing's mother, who had been there before, saw through her at a glance. After she pressed her, Duan Xueqing finally told her everything. Silly girl. Mrs. Duan hugged her daughter and sat on the sofa in the living room. She gently stroked her daughter's hair and sighed. There's so many good men in the world. You don't have to break your heart for one man. Go home with me and have some time alone. Mrs. Duan whispered into her daughter's ear. You won't have to see him every day. You'll be able to let go slowly. Duan Xueqing's heart was complicated. On one hand, she constantly struggled to break free from this relationship. On the other hand, she couldn't bear to leave Yangqing City. After all, she spent the best 5 years of her youth here. In the end, she left and returned to her hometown. Perhaps she needed to go into seclusion for a while. When she returned, she would be a brand new Duan Xueqing. Poplar Fruit felt that this was pretty good. Before Duan Xueqing left, he gave her a few linguistics and translation books with a smile. Good luck. Study hard and walk the path you like. Duan Xueqing left, but she firmly believed that she would return. There's one more update today. Please recommend me. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 374. Sixth update. University exams usually lasted for 1 to 2 weeks on a Monday. Some colleges had already finished their exams long ago, while others were still taking their time with one exam a day. Every time this happened, there would always be some poor student cramming for a big book at night. His phone's Weibo and other social media apps would constantly refresh with photos of his friends partying all night. With tears streaming down his face, he could only silently leave 2 words at the end of his post. Our friendship is over. Poplar Fruit didn't have to take the exam, but standing on a lawn outside the teaching building, his heart was not calm. Today was Fong Beibei's last exam, and it was also the college English exam that she was most afraid of. Poplar Fruit had specially come outside to wait for her. On the one hand, he was worried about Fong Beibei's performance. He didn't know if Fong Beibei could get a good grade after more than half a semester of private tutoring. Previously, Poplar Fruit had given Fong Beibei a test with a set of old questions. Fong Beibei had done well, scoring a little over 80 points. Compared to her previous grades, which were difficult to even pass, Fong Beibei had improved tremendously. However, who knew what the situation would be like during the exam? On the other hand, Poplar Fruit himself was a little nervous. He was prepared to confess today. He had secretly planned this for half a month and prepared everything that needed to be prepared. However, when he thought about confessing, he felt very nervous. It wasn't that he hadn't confessed before. At that time, Poplar Fruit had confessed with the mentality that he would be labeled a good person. He didn't have any psychological burden, and in the end, he succeeded. Even now, when he thought about it, it felt like a dream. However, it seemed a little different this time. Poplar Fruit was very eager to confess successfully. However, he was also worried. What if the confession didn't succeed? From then on, would Fong Beibei disappear from his life? Just thinking about it made Poplar Fruit want to retreat. However, Poplar Fruit did not want to delay any longer. He was afraid that his confession would fail, but he was even more afraid that he would do nothing and watch as Fong Beibei was embraced by another boy who beat him to it. He wanted to be with Fong Beibei, so he had to take the risk. Kiki was running on the green grass, screaming, laughing, and chasing Naughty Goldie under the warm sunshine. According to his usual habit, Poplar Fruit would definitely take out his phone and record this scene silently. But Poplar Fruit didn't. Even if Chi-Chi accidentally stepped on a small grass pit and fell down, Yangwood didn't pay any more attention to her when he saw that his daughter was completely fine after climbing up on her own. He was nervously reciting the words he would use in his confession later today. In fact, with Poplar Fruit's photographic memory, he didn't need to repeat this draft a second time. It was deeply engraved in his mind. However, under the psychological effect, Poplar Fruit couldn't help but recite it over and over again, for fear that he would forget it when he was nervous. Papa, Papa. Kiki was more than 10 meters away from Poplar Fruit, jumping and calling. Poplar Fruit fixed his eyes and walked to his daughter's position. What's wrong? Poplar Fruit walked to his daughter's side and lovingly touched her little head. Her hair was as soft as ever, but Fong Beibei braided Kiki's hair. It was very beautiful, but also very uncomfortable. At this time, my daughter with neat bangs was standing next to Kiki. She looked to be about 4 or 5 years old and was a head taller than Kiki. She was also pink and very cute. Poplar Fruit didn't know if his taste had changed after he became father. Now, when he looked at all the children, he felt that they were very close and very cute. Little sister. Kiki thought for a while, but couldn't think of a better way to call her. She lightly fanned her nose and said breathlessly, "Little sister wants to play with Kiki." Sometimes, some people said that women were more suitable than men to take care of children. This wasn't unreasonable. Although Poplar Fruit took care of Kiki in almost every possible way, he still lacked a talent compared to female mothers, and that was communication. Poplar Fruit preferred to stay at home by himself and learn about the little tricks and methods of raising children through the internet. Female mothers would take their children out and find other mothers to chat and share their experiences. At this time, they could also let their children interact with other children and improve their children's social skills. Poplar Fruit didn't consider this point. If he didn't go out, Kiki rarely had the chance to play with other children of the same age. Therefore, when Kiki met a little sister who was a little older than her who wanted to chat and play with her, she was nervous. Poplar Fruit squatted down and smiled as he held Kiki's little hand. He looked into her big, watery eyes and said, "This is a good thing. Kiki, why don't you ask this little sister's name?" Kiki timidly looked at the little sister with neat bangs and asked in a childish voice, "Little sister, what's your name?" "My name is Lu Sichuan. You can call me Sister Cece." The little sister with neat bangs thought for a while and said loudly. After Kiki asked, she didn't know what to do. She looked at her father as if asking for help. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Since you asked this little sister's name, you should also introduce yourself." Therefore, Kiki followed suit and said, "Sister Cece, my name is Yang Luachi. You can call me Kiki. Dad and the others also call me Kiki." "Kiki Kiki." Lu Sichuan happily pulled Kiki's little hand. "I just saw that your family has a big dog. Can I touch it?" The two little ones began to talk. Poplar Fruit looked at his daughter with satisfaction. Although he still hadn't thought of this problem, he felt that Kiki could play with other children. This was a good improvement. "Your child is so smart." A female voice sounded in Poplar Fruit's ear. Poplar Fruit looked up and saw a young woman in her 30s with neat bangs. Her hairstyle was exactly the same as her daughter's. Poplar Fruit smiled and stood up. He said, "No, you see, She doesn't even know how to play with children she doesn't know. That's because Kiki is still young. The young woman smiled. She's only 2 or 3 years old. How could she learn so quickly? When Cece was her age, she couldn't even speak properly. She misunderstood Kiki's age. Poplar Fruit smiled and didn't refute. Kiki might have inherited his good genes. Not only was she smart, but her body also developed quickly. She was only a little over a year old, but she looked like a 2 or 3-year-old child. Let Sister Cece take care of Kiki more. You see, she's still shy, haha. Poplar Fruit pointed at his daughter and laughed. Although Kiki was by her father's side and had the courage to talk to Sister Cece, who she had just met, her little face was still flushed red. It was as if she had been basked in the sun. It was very cute. There will be a small explosion in the next 2 days. There will be 4 updates. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 375. First update, Kiki and Lu Sichuan, the 2 children, were playing happily. Poplar Fruit, on the other hand, was absent-mindedly chatting with the young woman next to him. Lu Sichuan's mother was a little depressed. Women's minds were very sensitive. Although Poplar Fruit didn't make any language mistakes when chatting with her, she still felt the perfunctory attitude of Poplar Fruit that wasn't very obvious. Could it be that her charm was that bad? Lu Sichuan's mother secretly looked down at her curvy figure. She was so familiar that water could be squeezed out. But why didn't this little handsome guy feel it all? Thinking back to that year before she got married, the number of people who chased after her could form a company. Of course, she didn't want some romantic things to happen. She had a child, and life didn't allow her to think too much. However, when she saw Poplar Fruit standing under the sun, a little melancholy look added a lot of charm to his handsome face that made a woman like her have some palpitations. She couldn't help but want to get close to him. More importantly, she wanted to test whether she still had the charm of when she was young. Which woman didn't want to be the center of attention? However, in front of Poplar Fruit, who had a lot on his mind, her little idea didn't succeed. Instead, it hit her self-confidence. Dang, dang, dang. The bell rang from the teaching building not far away. If it was in the past, it would indeed mark the arrival of the end of class. But today, for Poplar Fruit, it was the reminder that the exam was over. Poplar Fruit took out his mobile phone and glanced at it. Yes, it was 11 o'clock. Fong Beibei's last subject of the semester, and the one she was most uncertain about, was finally over. That I'm sorry. Poplar Fruit said to Lu Sichuan's mother with an apologetic smile. We have to go. After that, he called Kiki. Kiki, Beibei's exam is over. We have to go. AI. Chi-Chi climbed down from Goldie's body and patted her, but in love with cleanliness. She reluctantly glanced at Miss Cece, who had been playing happily with her just now, and then skipped over to her father's side. It's okay, come play next time. Lu Sichuan's mother laughed. Poplar Fruit squatted down, touched Kiki's little head, and asked, Kiki, did you say goodbye to Cece? You have to say goodbye to Cece and Andy. Chi-Chi leaned on her father's shoulder. Her 2 little hands leaned against each other, her index fingers touching each other. She was a little embarrassed. Say bye-bye to Sister Cece, Yanghua instructed with a smile. Bye-bye, Sister Cece. Kiki finally opened her mouth under her father's reminder, and then said goodbye to Lu Sichuan's mother. Before leaving, Poplar Fruit saved Lu Sichuan's mother's phone number. She took the initiative to give it to him, and also invited Kiki to her house. Poplar Fruit exchanged numbers with her. It was good for Kiki to have one more friend. Looking at Kiki walking with joy, Poplar Fruit smiled. Walking to the teaching building, Poplar Fruit found that while he was dawdling, Fong Beibei had already left the examination room and walked downstairs. She was gathered with her roommates, happily talking about something. Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment, and then walked over. Hey, he's here. Lu Ruhua's eyes were the sharpest. Before Poplar Fruit walked to their side, she saw him and hurriedly reported. All of a sudden, all the girls looked at Poplar Fruit in unison. Today, Fong Beibei was still so beautiful. At this moment, Poplar Fruit only had eyes for Fong Beibei, who looked back with a smile. There was a beautiful girl in the southern kingdom, standing in a mortal world with a smile that could topple a city and another smile that could topple a country. Dressing was no longer important. Her bright eyes had already intoxicated Poplar Fruit. It was also because of his nervous mood that Poplar Fruit did not notice that Fong Beibei's roommates, who had always been friendly to him, looked at him with a complicated expression today. Only the petite and cute Lin Xingshan looked at Poplar Fruit with a worried expression. However, these were not important. Poplar Fruit was only thinking about Fong Beibei today, and there was no room for anything else in his mind. Kiki ran over first and threw herself into Fong Beibei's arms. She happily told her about today's harvest. She made a new friend. Poplar Fruit paused for a moment, then slowly walked over and asked with a smile, "How was the exam?" Fong Beibei was very busy. She raised her head from Kiki's whispers and looked at Poplar Fruit with a smile, and said, "It was okay. I think I performed at the same level as when you tested me. The questions weren't very difficult. We just checked the questions with Beibei, and we got a lot of them right." Lin Xingshan happily added, "For Fong Beibei." That's good. Poplar Fruit was very happy for Fong Beibei. This was because he wasn't worried that Fong Beibei wouldn't be able to reach the standard of 80 points. What he was worried about was that Fong Beibei had failed so many times in the past, and whether this psychological effect would affect her performance. Now, it seems that it should be in the bag. How about you guys? How did you guys do? Poplar Fruit was in a good mood. It was rare for him to show concern for Fong Beibei's roommates. Lu Lei proudly raised her head and said, "I passed CET for an English. This final exam is a piece of cake." Lu Ruhua shrugged. She and Wu Yanni used their actions to show that they did not care about the exam. Lin Xingshan whispered to Poplar Fruit, "Sister Yanni is very good. She usually gets more than 90 points in English." "Okay, I know you guys are good. Stop showing off here." Fong Beibei stretched out her empty hand and tickled Lu Lei's waist. The latter jumped up because of her tickling. "We were just discussing that the holidays are coming, so we should celebrate." Fong Beibei smiled and said to Poplar Fruit. This was exactly what Poplar Fruit wanted. He said happily, "Okay, how about we have a meal to celebrate?" Fong Beibei hesitated and said, "No need, right? We just want to sing karaoke." "It's okay," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Let's have lunch first, then sing karaoke in the afternoon. I know a good restaurant with a karaoke room next door. After lunch, we can go there directly." "Okay, I want to go." Lu Ruhua, who loved to play the most, did not care about complicated thoughts at this time. She took the lead and raised her hand and shouted happily. "Me too, me too." Lin Xingshan raised her hand, not to be outdone. "Let's go together. I'll pay," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Fong Beibei glanced at Poplar Fruit. She had a strange premonition today. She could not tell what it was, but she really did not want to go. However, her friends had already sold her out for fun. Even Wu Yanni, who was the least talkative, held her hand and looked at her with longing eyes. "Okay, let's go," Fong Beibei said helplessly. Chapter 376. Second update. Luckily, Poplar Fruit's Land Rover was big enough. Fong Beibei sat in the front passenger seat with Kiki in her arms. The four girls in the back squeezed a little and were able to fit everyone in. The restaurant had been booked a long time ago. They had asked Big Brother He about the place. Not only was the restaurant located in a busy area, but the service was also very high-end. The dishes on the menu started at a few hundred yuan. At that time, Poplar Fruit was shocked. Other than eating with Zheng Yujie in Beijing, Poplar Fruit had never ordered such expensive dishes. Normally, it would be difficult to even get a better room, let alone borrow other people's equipment. However, when Poplar Fruit mentioned Big Brother He's name, the restaurant manager's face immediately changed. Not only did he promise that he would satisfy all of Poplar Fruit's requests, but he also wanted to give Poplar Fruit a free meal. Poplar Fruit was already very grateful for their help. He didn't want the restaurant to give him a free meal. After all, this was a favor from Big Brother He. The restaurant manager took a roundabout route and gave Poplar Fruit a gold card. Anyway, as long as he came to spend money, he could get a 40% discount with the card. What kind of concept was this? If Poplar Fruit ordered a 5,000 yuan dish, Then he only needed to pay 2,000 yuan, a 40% discount. The restaurant would probably only be able to recover their cost. Poplar Fruit didn't want to accept it, but the manager said, "If you don't accept it, we won't help you." So, Poplar Fruit had no choice but to accept it. After getting out of the car, the girls were stunned by the magnificent decoration of the restaurant in front of them. Poplar Fruit, you're not lying to us, are you? Lu Ruhua stared at the big restaurant in front of her. Without turning her head, she murmured, "Don't tell me you stopped here and took us to the food stall behind the restaurant." "Ha! Yes, we're going to pass through here and eat at the food stall from the back of the restaurant." Poplar Fruit laughed and teased her. "I'm not as easy to bully as Bebe." Lu Ruhua held her head high and said, "Since you brought us sisters here, we'll eat here. Also, I'll order the most expensive dishes later. I want abalone and lobster." Poplar Fruit said heroically, "Okay, order whatever you want to eat. Today you have the final say." Fong Bebe wasn't happy. She stared at Poplar Fruit and said, "Why do we come to this kind of place again? It's very. Let's change it." "Don't." Poplar Fruit cried out in shock. He actually guessed that Fong Bebe would say this. She couldn't stand being extravagant and wasteful. But, helplessly, the restaurant that met his requirements the most was this restaurant. So he prepared an excuse. "Actually, this restaurant is opened by my friend." Looking at Fong Bebe's eyes of disbelief, Poplar Fruit hurriedly took out the gold car from his trouser pocket and said, "Look, this is given to me by him. It's 40% discount. I think since there's such good treatment, why don't we give it a try? Anyway, it's rare for everyone to be happy. It's not like we eat here every day." Fong Bebe glanced at it, but didn't take a closer look. She knew that Poplar Fruit wouldn't lie to her. Moreover, like what Poplar Fruit said, it's rare to come here. Just treat it as experiencing life. Caring too much would make life boring. "I've already booked the room," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. He ran to the lobby manager and said a few words. Then someone took them to the second floor. Kiki didn't let Fong Bebe hold her this time. She ran to her father's side and let her father hold her hand. Step by step, they walked up the stairs. Kiki was too small. If it wasn't for Poplar Fruit gently lifting her up, she wouldn't be able to step up the stairs even if she leaned back and raised her legs. Even so, Kiki still liked the feeling of climbing the stairs by herself. Being lifted up by her father and then put down, she felt like she was riding on the clouds. It was very fun. She happily counted the steps one by one, using English. 1, 2, 3. Kiki's pronunciation was perfect, and it attracted the attention of many diners. Poplar Fruit wasn't too surprised. His daughter learned things very quickly. These things were taught to her very early. It wasn't the first time for her to count steps. Of course, it was very interesting that Poplar Fruit hadn't taught Kiki how to count in her mother tongue. Instead, she learned how to count in English first. Did this count as skipping a grade? When they arrived at the private room, everyone exclaimed. The room was too big. It was at least 30 square meters. It could be used to hold a small party. There were only 7 of them, including Kiki. Wouldn't it be too wasteful to use such a room? Not only Fong Bebe, but even Lu Ruhua, who wanted to kill Poplar Fruit, expressed her concern. Before Poplar Fruit could answer, the waiter smiled and said, "Ladies, please don't worry. Gold VIP members are free of charge." This explanation made the girls feel relieved. Fong Bebe also tacitly accepted Poplar Fruit's arrangement. Lulei was the most lively. She ran around excitedly. She sat on the luxurious sofa for a while, then ran to the big table and turned the turntable on it. "Let's order first." Poplar Fruit took the menu from the waiter and handed it to the girls. Before Lu Ruhua could sit down, she couldn't wait to flip open the menu. When she saw the first page, she fell back into the chair and muttered, "Mom, it's so expensive. It's so expensive." Fong Bebe also opened the menu. On the first page, there was an Australian lobster that cost 1,888 yuan. She frowned. The first few pages were filled with high-end dishes, such as abalone or bird's nest, that cost thousands of RMB. Fong Bebe quickly flipped to the back. With the super expensive dishes at the front as a backdrop, The 300 to 400 RMB prices at the back were much more pleasing to the eye. However, she still felt her heart skip a beat. Although Lu Ruhua shouted that she wanted the most expensive lobster, she didn't dare to be so ruthless towards the end. When Poplar Fruit asked her if she wanted it, she waved her hand and refused again. What should they order? The girls were worried. The dishes here were too expensive. If they just ordered a few dishes, it would be more than 1,000 yuan. With the same price, if they went to a food stall, they didn't know how good the food would be. Why don't we go somewhere else? Fong Beibei said hesitantly. She wanted to save some money for Poplar Fruit, although she knew that Poplar Fruit wasn't short of money. The other girls also nodded in agreement. Even Lin Xingshan, who came from a good family, couldn't afford this price. No, let's go to this place. Poplar Fruit said decisively. Don't forget, I have a card that can give a 40% discount. Poplar Fruit forced them to order one dish each. Fong Beibei hesitated and ordered the cheapest soup, but it was still 366 yuan. The other girls ordered about the same price. Wu Yanni's was slightly more expensive, more than 500 yuan. How about I take that soup away? Fong Beibei sat next to Poplar Fruit. She gently nudged him and said, including your 5 dishes, it's enough. I'm not thirsty now. Chapter 377. Third update, one later update. Fong Beibei wanted to save a little, but to no avail. Instead, Poplar Fruit added a few more dishes. Poplar Fruit's actions actually had the intention of pleasing Fong Beibei and her roommates. Under the temptation of delicious food, Lu Ruhua and the others' attitudes towards him did indeed change. In fact, the price of the dishes was no longer important. Poplar Fruit didn't even care if the dishes meticulously prepared by the restaurant chef were delicious or not. He didn't eat much himself. His heart had already floated for dozens of minutes. The complex feelings of worry and expectation intertwined, making him appear a little absent-minded. What's wrong? Fong Beibei didn't eat as much as the other girls. She noticed Poplar Fruit's strange behavior and thought that her unhappy expression made Poplar Fruit sad. In the end, men still cared about face. He sincerely invited her and her roommates to eat, but she still made excuses. Fong Beibei felt a little regretful. She had a strange feeling that she had let Poplar Fruit down. Don't be unhappy. I like today's dishes very much. Thank you. Fong Beibei pushed Poplar Fruit and said softly. She also looked around at the other 4 girls in the dormitory and found that they were all busy eating and didn't see her muttering. She was slightly relieved. Poplar Fruit was stunned by Fong Beibei's words. He scratched his head and laughed. I'm not unhappy, as long as you like it. Ha! The girls didn't have a big appetite. Although it was delicious, their chopsticks didn't stop eating for a quarter of an hour before they gradually stopped. Lin Xingshan, who was the first to eat, had already sat down on the chair and rubbed her belly. She cried out, What should I do? I ate a lot today. I have to go on a diet when I go back. Kiki also imitated her and burped. Her cute appearance made everyone unable to help but laugh. Seeing that the girls were all sitting there chatting, Poplar Fruit pretended to get up to go to the toilet. In fact, he went around the screen and sneaked to the door. The manager of the restaurant was already waiting outside. Poplar Fruit smiled apologetically and took the microphone from the manager along with a bouquet of pink lilies decorated with stars. After you go in, it will start in 3 seconds. The manager raised 3 fingers at Poplar Fruit and instructed. Poplar Fruit nodded. He had practiced this before, and Poplar Fruit understood the process. As soon as he turned around, Poplar Fruit's heart began to beat wildly. At this important moment, Poplar Fruit couldn't help but feel nervous. He couldn't even move his feet. Come on. The manager patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder gently, wishing him well and encouraging him. After taking 2 deep breaths, Poplar Fruit forcibly suppressed his chaotic state of mind and walked inside. After entering, Poplar Fruit found that his heart was beating even faster. Huh? What is this? The girls behind the screen suddenly exclaimed. In the room, Lin Xingshan pointed at a silk curtain that was slowly rising. She covered her mouth and asked her roommates to look over. After the curtain was pulled up by the bearing, a huge LCD screen was revealed. Fong Bei curiously turned her head and saw the LCD screen lit up. Did Kiki press something by mistake? Lin Xingshan glanced at Kiki, who was full and rolling on the sofa. But she didn't find anything. Suddenly, a melodious piece of music rang out, startling the girls. The sound system in this private room was very good. There were high-end speakers all around, forming a surround sound system, giving people a feeling of immersion. But the girls weren't mentally prepared for the sudden sound. Hearing the music, Kiki poked her head out from the big sofa and looked curiously. This was the final video that was edited by the special effects team of Call Beast. Poplar Fruit didn't show Kiki, so she didn't know. But Fong Bei felt that something was wrong. She remembered Poplar Fruit's strange behavior today, and remembered Kiki telling her that Poplar Fruit prepared a surprise for her. Fong Bei's heart couldn't help but beat wildly. After the opening music, only a melodious melody was left. It was like a slideshow with even more dazzling special effects. The photos of Fong Bei and Poplar Fruit after they met began to slowly appear on the huge LCD screen like a beautiful and dreamy story. Poplar Fruit held the flowers and held the microphone as he slowly walked out from the side of the LCD screen. He didn't dare to walk too fast. If he walked too fast, his nervousness would be revealed. Bei, cough, cough. I know that the luckiest thing that happened to me in my life was around this time last year when I met you by the lake at school, but Poplar Fruit was still nervous, and his voice cracked a little when he spoke the first sentence. Fortunately, his voice became clear after that, and the more he spoke, the better he sounded. Deep emotions flowed out from Poplar Fruit, like he was reciting a poem. Accompanied by the melodious melody, it was as if the entire room was immersed in his deep feelings. Fong Bei listened to Poplar Fruit reminiscing about every detail of the past year. Her expression was a little complicated, and the light in her eyes was a struggle between longing and sadness. She bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth, and there was a trace of disorder in her breathing. The light from the LCD screen blocked Poplar Fruit's line of sight, so he didn't see this scene. But according to his original plan, he slowly walked toward Fong Bei with hope and true love. After the confession, Poplar Fruit really recited a poem. Or rather, he was reciting a love letter he wrote to Fong Bei. I don't know when it started, but your figure, graceful like a veil, kept appearing in front of my eyes. I don't know when it started, but your voice, clear like a wind chime, often lingered in my ears. I don't know when it started, but your eyes, brighter than the stars in my mind, gave me the direction to move forward. Only then did I understand that I love you. I've been missing you day and night, and I can't control myself. The deep feelings in Poplar Fruit's eyes made Fong Bei confused. She was a little like a frightened rabbit, wanting to hide, but unable to. I love your kindness. I love your innocence. I love every bit of you and Kiki. Poplar Fruit said gently. On the screen, there were also photos of Kiki and Fong Bei laughing happily. These were all secretly taken by Poplar Fruit, and no one else had seen them. I think no one in the world can match your kindness to Kiki. Even more than me. You have to understand Kiki. I think I've been attached to the warmth and sweetness of our time together. I just want to be able to cherish you forever. Finally, Poplar Fruit quoted a poem by Sangyang Jiazhua. Come into my arms, or let me live in your heart. Silently love, silently rejoice. Bei, I like you. Be my girlfriend. Handing over the lily in his hand, Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Bei with a very sincere gaze, so sincere that it seemed to be able to melt steel. The video also finished playing. The private room was silent, and only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. No one was calm in their hearts, and they were all waiting for Fong Bei's final response. Chapter 378. Fourth update. Some readers said that if Bei doesn't agree, they'll abandon the book. Actually, there's no need for that. The female lead of this book is clearly Fong Bei. What's there to worry about? Do you still remember the opening sentence of this volume? Spring is coming. Although there will still be a bit of winter chill, the flowers will eventually bloom in the warmth of spring. No, Fong Bei suddenly said a word softly. Although this word wasn't loud, it was clearly heard by Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei's roommates. The originally sweet atmosphere suddenly stagnated. It was as if the melodious melody had suddenly stopped. It made people confused and uncomfortable. Poplar Fruit was stunned. His hands, which were moving forward to send the flowers, stopped in midair. The flowers were delicate, but it was no longer suitable for the occasion. No, Fong Beibei added, a shaking motion this time. Her eyes were so flustered, as if she was worried that she wouldn't be able to insist on this choice. Fong Beibei turned her head and ran past Poplar Fruit to the door of the private room in a panic. She pulled it open and escaped outside. The door opened and closed. The door made a loud noise when it hit the door frame. It was as if a broken heart was suddenly scattered in the wilderness. Poplar Fruit didn't move at all. He lowered his head and froze on the spot like a clay sculpture. Before confessing, Poplar Fruit had thought about the good and bad endings. Of course, there were more good endings. Being rejected was a minefield that he didn't dare to touch. But now he was really rejected. Poplar Fruit didn't know what to do in the future. He couldn't think. His brain was already a mess. Lu Ruhua and the others looked at Poplar Fruit and sighed softly. They got up one by one and chased after Fong Beibei. Fong Beibei lowered her head, covered her mouth, and ran out. She did not even take the elevator. She rushed down the stairs in a daze until she reached the entrance of the restaurant. On the street outside the door, there was an endless stream of people coming and going. As the saying goes, the world is bustling and everyone comes for profit. The world is bustling and everyone goes for profit. The whole world seemed to have become very strange. No one noticed that a sorrowful girl was standing in front of this big hotel that was renovated like a palace and lost her way. To the left or to the right. Fong Beibei took a step forward and then stopped. Her eyes began to mist and tears began to seep out from the corners of her eyes. Isn't this too arbitrary? Fong Beibei didn't know that she regretted it so much. How sad will Uncle be if I reject him like this? The kind-hearted girl's heart was in a mess. As soon as this thought popped up in her head, it grew crazily like bamboo shoots after the rain. Her eyes kept flashing past Poplar Fruit's dim eyes when she passed by Poplar Fruit. No. Fong Beibei stood at the door for a long time. She suddenly wiped her tears, turned around, and ran back. She had just taken 2 steps when Lu Ruhua and Lu Lei hugged her from left and right, preventing her from running inside. Let go of me. Fong Beibei shouted with tears flowing down her face. What are you doing? Lu Ruhua also asked loudly in her ear. I want to explain it to him. Fong Beibei murmured, bean-sized tears flowing down. What's there to explain? Lu Ruhua asked somewhat angrily. You rejected him, and now your heart hurts? As early as half a month ago, during the night chat in the dormitory, Lu Ruhua wanted to completely break up Fong Beibei and Poplar Fruit. A man like this is not worth your time. These were her original words. Lu Lei and Wu Yanni didn't agree to Fong Beibei being with a man with a child. After that incident, they were even more against it. However, at that time, Fong Beibei only said, "It's okay, I know how to deal with it." Then, as usual, she helped Poplar Fruit look after Kiki. Think about how he lied to you. Lu Ruhua shouted in Fong Beibei's ear, word by word. But am I too cruel? Fong Beibei asked with tears in her eyes. Just thinking about Poplar Fruit's dazed look, Fong Beibei's heart felt suffocated. What's cruel about it? Breakups are all like this. You have to be firm, you have to be decisive. Lu Lei retorted. What nonsense are you talking about? Lu Ruhua glared at her, hugged Fong Beibei, and comforted her. You and Poplar Fruit didn't break up. You didn't even hold hands. How could you break up? It's okay. Beibei will accompany you to relax. After one night, you'll be fine. She knew that, not to mention one night, the wound probably wouldn't heal for a long time, but she felt that this was the best choice. With that, the 3 of them hugged Fong Beibei and walked out. Where's Shan Shan? Walking to the door, Lu Lei was the first to notice the problem. Yeah, where did she run off to? Lu Ruhua looked around and asked curiously. Don't tell me she went to the washroom? Xiao Lei, go look for her. Lu Lei looked into the distance, and suddenly found a person in the elevator that just opened. She happily waved and said, "No need to look for her, I saw her. Wait for me. I'm coming." Lin Xingshan carried her small backpack and waved back as she hurriedly ran over. She was still shouting from afar. Lu Lei smiled and held the door for her. Lin Xingshan was still out of breath from running on Little Duan, and when she arrived, she was out of breath. Lu Ruhua freed a hand and gently patted Lin Xingshan's back. She asked somewhat reproachfully, "Why did you fall behind? Don't tell me you went to the washroom? You didn't even tell us you were going." Lin Xingshan finally managed to catch her breath. She looked up and smiled apologetically. "Sorry, I left my bag inside. I went back to get it later and forgot to tell you guys. It's okay, let's go." Lu Ruhua carried Fong Beibei, and the few of them walked away from the school. "What's wrong with Beibei?" Lin Xingshan saw Fong Beibei's teary appearance and asked curiously what happened. She still wants to go back and explain to that poplar fruit. Isn't that unnecessary? Lu Lei walked beside Lin Xingshan and said angrily, "That's enough. From now on, no one is allowed to mention that word. Let's take a walk by the river and let Beibei have some peace and quiet." Lu Ruhua turned her head and said seriously. Lu Lei stuck out her tongue and quickly shut her big mouth. Lin Xingshan didn't continue speaking. She walked behind them and looked at Fong Beibei leaning in Lu Ruhua's arms. Her tears seemed to still be flowing. However, with Fong Beibei's personality, her tears wouldn't flow out. Lin Xingshan sighed softly in her heart. They're clearly a good couple. Why don't they communicate properly? Beibei is also the same. She's always suppressing her feelings. She's unwilling to let go and doesn't dare to let go. That bastard in the past hurt her too much. While no one was paying attention, Lin Xingshan looked back at the hotel that wasn't far away. She said in her heart, "Brother Yang, don't let me down. I know that you're a good person. You're not like what they said. Moreover, Beibei still likes you." Chapter 379. First update. The reason why Lin Xingshan fell behind wasn't because she forgot to take something as she said. When she left the private room with her sisters, she deliberately stayed at the back and didn't go out. Brother Yang. After Lin Xingshan waited for her sisters to run out, she turned to Poplar Fruit and pushed Poplar Fruit, who seemed to be frozen. "You're just going to let it go like this?" Poplar Fruit gradually woke up from his chaotic emotions at this time. He glanced at Lin Xingshan blankly and asked in a low voice, Shan, why? Why did she say no?" "Because of the stupid things you did," Lin Xingshan said angrily. Her relationship with Poplar Fruit was quite good. She deliberately stayed behind to explain to Poplar Fruit what was going on. "What did I do?" Poplar Fruit's voice almost couldn't find any tone. It was so depressed that it made people uncomfortable. Lin Xingshan briefly explained that Fong Beibei inadvertently learned from Kiki that Poplar Fruit kissed another woman. Not only that, Lin Xingshan said, "Also, you left Beibei alone for the whole day. After you came back, you brought a beauty with you in the car." Beibei secretly cried after she came back that night. Ahua asked for a long time before she found out. Poplar Fruit understood as soon as he heard it. The kiss should be because Kiki inadvertently told her about the scene where he was kissed by Zhang Yujia. The so-called bringing a beauty in the car was the incident where Poplar Fruit was arrested and sent to prison a few days ago. "Brother Yang, you're a good person. Why did you learn to be fickle like others?" Lin Xingshan asked. "Do you know that what Beibei hates the most is others lying to her?" In the past, Lin Xingshan stopped in time, almost revealing the heavenly secret. These are all misunderstandings. I don't know why she didn't tell me before. Poplar Fruit held his head and fell down on the chair next to him. "What did you say before?" Lin Xingshan asked. "What's your relationship?" "According to what Beibei said, you are just ordinary friends. How can she interfere in your affairs?" "But I really didn't lie to her." Poplar Fruit excitedly waved his hands and asked. "Those are all misunderstandings. I can explain." "You don't have to explain it to me." Lin Xingshan took a step back and said. She felt that she had spoken too harshly, so she adjusted her tone and said softly, "If you want to explain, you have to explain it to Beibei. I think that after Beibei knew about those things, she still got along with you for so long. She must have you in her heart." Aya. Lin Xingshan calculated the time and exclaimed, "After talking for so long, I have to go." After saying that, Lin Xingshan carried her small backpack and hurriedly chased after him. Only Yanghua, who was in a daze, and Chi-Chi, who didn't understand, were left in the room. "If you want to explain it to Bei Bei." Lin Xingshan's voice was still echoing in Poplar Fruit's mind. However, the confession had used up all of Poplar Fruit's strength and consumed all of Poplar Fruit's courage. When he thought of being rejected, Poplar Fruit hesitated. People left one by one. The atmosphere in the room was very strange. Kiki felt a little depressed. She slid down from the sofa in fear, ran to her father's side, and hugged her father's calf. "Papa, what is a girlfriend?" Kiki asked curiously. Poplar Fruit picked up Kiki. Looking at her innocent little face, he complained in his heart, but when the words came to his mouth, they turned into a sigh. In fact, he couldn't blame Kiki, could he? Kiki was just a child's babble. If he hadn't been so stupid and didn't provoke so many girls, he wouldn't have become like this today. Well, it's all Xiao Han's fault. A girlfriend is... Poplar Fruit didn't explain further. He didn't know how to explain it to Kiki, so he could only answer, "Kiki, you'll understand when you grow up." Continuing to be silent, Poplar Fruit fell into his own thoughts again. Kiki was a little afraid of her father's mood. Moreover, she also remembered that today was the first time Fong Beibei left her without saying goodbye. She timidly asked, "Papa, did Kiki make Papa and Beibei angry?" Poplar Fruit's thoughts were interrupted by Kiki. Just as he was about to answer, he didn't expect Kiki to apologize first. Kiki knows her mistake. "Papa and Beibei, don't be angry, okay?" Poplar Fruit was a little surprised and touched. He gently kissed Kiki's forehead and said, "Kiki, you're so silly. It's not your fault. It's Papa who made Beibei angry." "Why?" Kiki asked in confusion. Why would Papa make Sister Beibei angry? With Kiki's little brain, she still didn't understand the cause and effect of this. Poplar Fruit didn't continue to answer. He was thinking in his heart. Even Kiki could apologize so frankly. Why couldn't he explain clearly and apologize to Fong Beibei? Could it be that an adult was not as courageous as a child? "Kiki, Papa knows. Papa will go and apologize to Beibei. Papa also knows his mistake," Poplar Fruit said softly as he hugged his daughter. He stood up and walked outside. The pink and delicate lilies were left in the private room. This was meaningless now. If he wanted to make Fong Beibei change her mind, he could only use his true feelings. Nothing else would work. Walking to the door of the private room, Poplar Fruit saw the manager standing to the side. From his comforting eyes, Poplar Fruit knew that the manager had also guessed his ending. "Sorry, I wasted your arrangement," Poplar Fruit said apologetically. No. The manager hurriedly waved his hand and said, "It's a pity that I couldn't help you. Let's go and settle the bill." Poplar Fruit smiled. "Please hurry up. I still have to catch up with the girl who ran out first and explain to her. The money problem is not urgent. Let's talk about it later." The manager said righteously, "Mr. Yang, you quickly go and catch up with her. Leave this place to us to clean up." Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment, nodded gratefully at him, and ran out. "Which way?" Poplar Fruit carried Kiki and ran all the way to the entrance of the restaurant. He looked left and right, but didn't see Fong Beibei's figure. He was in a dilemma. Just like Fong Beibei, he didn't know which direction to go. They should be back to school. Poplar Fruit was decisive. He looked to the left and said firmly in his heart. Then he chased in the right direction. Of course, Poplar Fruit ran in the wrong direction. Although his footsteps were fast, he ran for nearly 15 minutes and ran out of more than 3 streets. But he still didn't see Fong Beibei's figure. I'm so stupid." Poplar Fruit stopped and patted his head. "They should have left by car. Papa, it hurts." In a vast sea of people, only Kiki was the most considerate. She leaned in Poplar Fruit's arms and used her fingers to gently massage the place where her father hid himself. Chapter 380. Second update. Poplar Fruit returned to the hotel later and drove his own car back to school. He parked his car below Fong Beibei's dormitory. He hesitated for a moment and left Kiki in the car. The car windows were rolled down, so Kiki would not be in danger. After getting out of the car, Poplar Fruit looked up at Fong Beibei's dormitory and took out his phone to call Fong Beibei. After a few rings, the call was picked up. However, before Poplar Fruit could speak, the call was hung up again. Poplar Fruit listened to the silence on the phone and was a little dumbfounded. However, although Poplar Fruit was a little stupid and cowardly when it came to relationships, once he was firm in his beliefs, he would persevere. Therefore, he pressed the button a second time and called Fong Beibei's number again. This time, Fong Beibei's phone was switched off. Poplar Fruit was a little upset that she did not pick up his phone. He gritted his teeth and looked at Fong Beibei's dormitory. He decided to wait until Fong Beibei came down. This time, he did not want to give up again. This time, Poplar Fruit decided to use his persistence to move Fong Beibei. What Poplar Fruit did not know was that the person who had hung up on him was not Fong Beibei. After Fong Beibei saw her phone ring, she hesitated for a moment and still picked up Poplar Fruit's call. However, Lu Ruhua, who was beside her, noticed and snatched the phone away. She hung up and turned off the phone. What Poplar Fruit did not expect was that Fong Beibei was not in the dormitory at all. The girls were sitting on the stone bench by the river, not saying a word, accompanying Fong Beibei in a daze. No matter where Fong Beibei was, Poplar Fruit thought that Fong Beibei was upstairs, or perhaps secretly watching him from a corner. Poplar Fruit stood straight in front of Fong Beibei's dormitory building, like a small white poplar at a border outpost. The girls walked in and out. Poplar Fruit was such a big target, so he naturally became their focus. They pointed at Poplar Fruit and whispered, muttering about which girl was so cruel to leave such a handsome guy out in the sun. Poplar Fruit stood in front of the girls' dormitory like a sentinel. Even the dormitory manager came over to persuade Poplar Fruit to leave, but Poplar Fruit was very firm. He stood there without moving, his eyes only looking at the entrance of the dormitory, hoping to see that beautiful figure appear. The afternoon of June had already caught up with the footsteps of summer. The sun shone through the gaps between the branches and leaves of the king coconut tree, leaving camouflage spots of light on Poplar Fruit's face. Poplar Fruit did not move, but his face was already covered in fine beads of sweat. He pursed his lips, his face resolute, like a soldier who had experienced hundreds of battles, never giving up. Accompanied by the sound of cicadas and accompanied by the warm and cool breeze, Kiki yawned and fell asleep in the car out of boredom. Time seemed to pass very slowly, but it also seemed to pass very quickly. Poplar Fruit did not know how long he had been standing there. He did not know how many people came to secretly look at him and secretly take pictures of him, but the sky gradually darkened. It was not evening yet, but it was going to rain. As the saying goes, the weather in June is like a child's face. In the morning, the sky was clear, but now it was going to rain heavily. The wind blew the gravel, and the dragonflies flew very low. Inside the dormitory, there were already a few sounds of the door being blown shut by the wind, but Fong Beibei still did not appear. Poplar Fruit was a little depressed. He returned to the side of the car and rolled up the window for the sleeping Kiki. He also turned on the small lights and the air conditioner inside. There was no refrigeration, just to ensure that there was enough fresh air. He did not intend to leave dejectedly. In Poplar Fruit's dictionary, there was no such thing as giving up halfway. There was only stubbornness and perseverance. So what if it was raining? Poplar Fruit was not afraid. After taking care of everything for Kiki, Poplar Fruit stood firmly in the same place. Not long after, a few figures appeared at the end of the path. A few girls were holding each other's hands and running back with smiles on their faces. Good thing it's not raining yet. Lu Ruhua turned her head and said to Fong Beibei with a smile. When it was dark, they rushed back as if they were running for their lives. They did not bring an umbrella. They were worried that after they got out of the subway, they would be drenched on the way back to the dormitory. However, Lu Ruhua noticed that Fong Beibei had stopped there and was staring blankly in a certain direction. Lu Ruhua looked in the direction of Fong Beibei's gaze in confusion. She then realized that in front of the dormitory, Poplar Fruit was standing there, ramrod straight. Poplar fruit. Lulay also saw him. She jumped up and exclaimed in a low voice. Poplar fruit's appearance was indeed out of their expectations. Poplar fruit had not seen them yet. He still thought that Fong Bei was still upstairs, so he kept staring at the dormitory door. Ignore him. Lu Ruhua turned her head and said this. Fong Bei broke free from her hands and ran past them to Poplar fruit. Hearing the footsteps, Poplar fruit looked to the left. He could not move his eyes away. It was her. Because of running, Fong Bei's long hair gently fluttered in the wind. It was as if a long piece of silk was draped over her. Her eyes were slightly swollen, but her face was as beautiful as a fairy that descended from the heavens. Fong Bei ran to Poplar fruit's side. She took a deep breath and pretended to be calm. She said, "You should go back. It's going to rain soon." Poplar fruit shook his head and said, "I'm not going. I want to explain to you." "You have nothing to explain to me. You should go back." Fong Bei turned her head. She did not dare to look into Poplar fruit's eyes. She said with heavy breathing. She felt that she was going to cry again. "No, Bei, listen to me." Poplar fruit anxiously said, "It's really a misunderstanding." "I'm not listening." Fong Bei's heart was in a mess. She covered her ears and ran to the dormitory. It seemed that running away was her only choice. After running to the dormitory, Fong Bei turned around. She looked at Poplar fruit and shouted, "It's raining. You should go back." Poplar fruit shook his head. He firmly looked at her. He stood there motionless. After Fong Bei shouted, she walked back to her dormitory without looking back. Lu Ruhua also led several other roommates to slowly pass by the dormitory. Some of them did not even look at Poplar fruit. Some of them looked at Poplar fruit with a complicated expression. There was also Lin Xingshan. She secretly waved her fist at Poplar fruit to encourage him. The girls all went up. The dormitory was quiet again. However, Poplar fruit was still standing in the empty space. He did not move. Today, Poplar fruit's stubborn temper came up. No matter how big the storm was, he did not plan to leave. He must make things clear with Fong Bei. The dark clouds in the sky piled up layer after layer. It gave off a feeling of dark clouds pressing down on the city. The sand and gravel on the ground were flying. The sound of the wind passing through the buildings and trees was getting louder and louder. Finally, a bolt of lightning cut through the sky, illuminating the dark ground. Accompanied by a few exclamations from the girls' dormitory, raindrops fell to the ground before the thunder. The raindrops were very big. When they fell to the ground, they rolled up the sand and spread out a large patch of spots. Today's 4 chapters can only be considered as the last small explosion. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 381. Third update. At first, the raindrops were only the size of beans, but after a while, the raindrops formed a curtain and became a torrential downpour. He's still downstairs. Lin Xingshan dutifully played the role of the informant. She secretly pulled open the curtains beside her bed, took a glance, and then turned around and said, "It can't be right." The most impartial Lu Ruhua was also moved at this moment. The rain outside was too heavy, and from the sound, one could tell how terrifying it was. Fong Bei curled up on her bed, buried her head between her knees, and her shoulders trembled. Lin Xingshan and Lu Ruhua looked at Fong Bei with some worry. Downstairs of the girls' dormitory, Poplar fruit was being washed by the torrential downpour. The raindrops hitting his body were actually quite strong, but Poplar fruit relied on his physical strength to withstand it. The raindrops fell on his head, slid down his cheeks, and became a muddy patch. No matter how dense the rain was, he couldn't see far. At this moment, Poplar fruit's eyes were blurred by the raindrops, and he couldn't open them. But he still tried his best to open his eyes, looking at the dark hole in the building, and waited in anticipation. "It's coming. It's coming." Poplar fruit cheered in his heart. He saw a familiar figure appear at the door, holding up an umbrella and rushing towards him. Poplar fruit should have been happy, but when he saw Fong Bei rushing to his side, the small umbrella was completely useless in the torrential downpour, and her clothes were wet. Poplar fruit's heart ached again. He suddenly had an idea, and that is he would rather Fong Beibei ignore him and not come out. He didn't want Fong Beibei to be exposed to the wind and rain. Are you stupid? Fong Beibei rushed in front of Poplar Fruit and shouted. The rain was so heavy that it was hard to tell whether Fong Beibei's face was covered with tears or rainwater. She tried her best to stand on her tiptoes and hold up the umbrella. She wanted to use the small umbrella to shelter Poplar Fruit, who was much taller than her, from the rain. Fong Beibei had just raised the umbrella over Poplar Fruit's head when a rainstorm swallowed the last bit of dryness on her body. This time, she was also drenched. Poplar Fruit was anxious. He pulled Fong Beibei, who was standing on her tiptoes, into his arms. How many times had he looked forward to this hug? But it was in this pouring rain that I picked you up. The girl's body was very soft. Poplar Fruit could feel at the moment he touched her. Poplar Fruit's hand clasped Fong Beibei's waist. Her slender waist could not be held. Being suddenly attacked by Poplar Fruit, Fong Beibei cried out and leaned into Poplar Fruit's arms. His hand lost strength. The umbrella slipped down and was instantly blown away by the strong wind. Poplar Fruit did not have time to think about it. The reason he hugged Fong Beibei was not to take advantage of her. He was worried that Fong Beibei would catch a cold. Poplar Fruit lifted Fong Beibei up. With his strength, he easily carried her to the eaves. It's raining so heavily. Idiot, why did you come out? Poplar Fruit used his body to block the dripping water from the eaves. He lowered his head and looked at Fong Beibei, whose wet hair was stuck to her cheeks, and questioned, "Isn't that because you're an idiot, standing outside in the rain like a fool?" Fong Beibei retorted. Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei's sparkling red lips in a daze. His breathing began to quicken. Fong Beibei did not know what Poplar Fruit was thinking. She only felt a trace of charm lingering in her heart. But she blushed and subconsciously turned her head away. Her stubborn look did not lose to Poplar Fruit, who was standing alone in the rain. Beibei. Poplar Fruit sobered up a little. He felt that he should take this opportunity to clear up all the misunderstandings. Shan Shan told me everything. I'm sorry for not telling you clearly about those two things. But it's really a misunderstanding. The wind and rain were very heavy, but the small space that Poplar Fruit separated for her did not let the wind and rain in. It was very safe. Fong Beibei did not say anything. She felt the spaciousness of Poplar Fruit's chest and the warmth emitted from his body. She felt the strength of Poplar Fruit's breathing and the strength of his heartbeat. Fong Beibei tilted her head and looked in another direction through the mist. She did not know if she was tired. She gently leaned her cheek against Poplar Fruit's right arm that was leaning against the wall and listened quietly. Poplar Fruit told her everything. The kiss that Kiki said to you is really not what you think. The situation is like this. A good friend of mine at the publishing house. Poplar Fruit explained the process of Zheng Yujie making a scene at the wedding and pretending to be his girlfriend for him. However, Poplar Fruit still concealed Zheng Yujie's confession and feelings for him. You know that it's uncomfortable. Why did you go before? Fong Beibei did not look at him. She muttered in a low voice. Her voice was instantly swept away by the whistling wind and rain, almost inaudible. Poplar Fruit still heard it. He quickly admitted his mistake. I know I was wrong. This wedding is the last time. I won't contact her again. That's not what I meant. Fong Beibei lowered her head and did not continue. As for the misunderstanding that day, when Poplar Fruit was arrested, Poplar Fruit did not hide anything. He told her everything. And that day, I did lie to you. After I met the tutor, I went to find a restaurant. I didn't deliberately not come back at noon. Something happened. I got into a fight and was arrested by the police. Later, I was rescued by a big brother of mine. The girl you saw in my car that day is called Duan Xueching. She's my junior and also my friend. Not only was she in the car, but my good friend Song Jiwen was also in the car. My big brother was driving a car behind. No wonder you were so smelly that day. Fong Beibei turned her head. Her eyes revealed a trace of emotion. She looked at Poplar Fruit and asked, "Why did you get into a fight with them? There's so many restaurants. We can still change." No, it's because those guys wanted to bully Shuetching, and I found out. Poplar Fruit explained the cause and effect. Then are you hurt anywhere? Fong Beibei gently touched Poplar Fruit's arm and asked worriedly. Don't worry. Although the rain outside was a little cold, Poplar Fruit felt warm in his heart. They didn't dare to do anything to me. They only asked a few questions and then locked me up. Who told you to stand up for them? You deserved it. Fong Beibei turned her head away in a fit of pique. She did not look at him again. Poplar Fruit was a little nervous. He gently placed his left hand on Fong Beibei's soft shoulder and asked softly, Beibei, are you still angry with me? Fong Beibei shook her head. She pursed her lips and didn't say anything. Poplar Fruit was happy. He gently hugged and supported Fong Beibei's shoulders. He pulled her almost into his embrace and asked softly, then, Beibei, do you agree to be my girlfriend? I will treat you well in the future. Otherwise, I will be struck by lightning. Poplar Fruit raised 4 fingers and swore. Chapter 382. Fourth update. Fong Beibei turned her head and stared into Poplar Fruit's eyes. Her eyes were somewhat complicated. Poplar Fruit's heart just fell, but it was raised high again. I have one more question. Fong Beibei took a deep breath and asked. Ask away. Poplar Fruit quickly said, I promise to answer truthfully. Do you really love me? Or do you just want to find a stepmother for Kiki? Fong Beibei's eyes became very calm at this moment. Don't know if it was because of the rain. Fong Beibei's chaotic thoughts finally cleared up, leaving only one question. Poplar Fruit was stunned. This question really made Poplar Fruit speechless. In fact, this question was very easy to answer. If it was Song Juin or any other man, he would certainly answer without hesitation. I really love you. In fact, this question was not a question at all. For an ordinary girl, wasn't this the answer they wanted? However, Fong Beibei was not an ordinary girl, and Poplar Fruit was not an ordinary man. Poplar Fruit, whose EQ was not very high, was stuck on this question. He even began to doubt himself. Yes, I love Fong Beibei. What about her? Or is it just because Kiki likes Fong Beibei, and I love her because I love her? Poplar Fruit was dumbfounded. He did not know how to answer. Poplar Fruit's mouth was wide open. His brain was spinning. Suddenly, it got stuck. Countless nerves were tangled up in an instant, and he could not figure it out. Why couldn't he figure it out? From the first day Poplar Fruit met Fong Beibei, when the two of them were together, Kiki was always there. Even Poplar Fruit did not know if his feelings for Fong Beibei began when he saw Fong Beibei's beautiful back by the lake, or when he found out that Fong Beibei could be accepted by Kiki. At that time, Kiki was very young. She was never willing to leave her father's arms. However, Fong Beibei let Kiki throw herself into her arms. Moreover, Kiki gave her first kiss to Beibei. This was something that Poplar Fruit still kept in his heart. Kiki was too important in Poplar Fruit's life. Even in Poplar Fruit's eyes, Kiki's position was not as important as Kiki. Everything had to be prioritized. Did Poplar Fruit like Fong Beibei? This was without a doubt. If he did not like her, how could he be attracted to her? However, even in his dream, when he and Fong Beibei were together sweetly, Kiki was still mixed in between them. This made Poplar Fruit confused himself. Did he fall in love with Fong Beibei? Or did he fall in love with Fong Beibei because Kiki liked Fong Beibei? Poplar Fruit hesitated for a long time. It seemed that he could not find the answer to this question. He finally opened his mouth, but he could not help but ask Fong Beibei, what's the difference between this question? Beibei, I know that you also like Kiki. Can't you accept her? There's a big difference. Fong Beibei looked very seriously into Poplar Fruit's eyes and replied, It's true that I like Kiki, but friendship and love are two different things. The former is that you like me because you like me. The latter is that you like me because you want to find a nanny because you like me. As a friend, I'm willing to help you take care of Kiki. In other words, I'm willing to play with Kiki. However, as a lover, I can't accept that you don't love me as a person, but my value. Fong Beibei's words were very roundabout, but it was very clear. How can you think like that? Poplar Fruit could not help but refute her. However, before Poplar Fruit could finish his words, Fong Bebe used her soft palm to cover Poplar Fruit's mouth. She gently shook her head and looked at Poplar Fruit sadly, saying, "Do you know why I asked this?" Poplar Fruit shook his head honestly. "When you showed me the video at the restaurant, I watched it very seriously. I was very touched. Really, I didn't think that you would take so many photos of me in the past 6 months." Fong Bebe said softly, "But I also saw that there were a total of 37 photos in the video. 29 of them were photos of me and Kiki together, accounting for about 78.4%. There were only 12 photos of you and me at the same time. I won't talk about the probability, it's not even half. Also, I couldn't find any photos of only you and me." Poplar Fruit's head was covered in cold sweat when he heard Fong Bebe's words. His memory was very good. As he listened to Fong Bebe, he counted in his mind. The data was exactly as Fong Bebe said. However, without a calculator, Poplar Fruit knew that he would not be able to calculate the percentage in his mind. A female math genius was indeed not an ordinary person. Fong Bebe continued, "Although I know that you're taking photos, and it's very difficult for you to enter the camera as you wish, with such a huge contrast, isn't it obvious? I'm very worried. Do you really love me?" Poplar Fruit opened his mouth, but it was covered by Fong Bebe. She shook her head. This time, she raised her beautiful face and looked at Poplar Fruit fearlessly. She said seriously, "This question is very important to me. I don't want you to brush me off. Before you answer, you have to think carefully." Poplar Fruit was anxious. He wanted to say, "I love you. How can I not love you?" However, Fong Bebe did not let him say it. She bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth, lowered her head, and said, "I'll give you 2 months to think about it. The summer vacation is coming. In these 2 months, let's not see each other, okay? 2 months, so long." Poplar Fruit stood there in a daze. He was a little lost and did not know how to answer Fong Bebe. 2 months was too long. It was long enough to change anything. Fong Bebe saw that Poplar Fruit did not reply. She raised her head and happened to see Poplar Fruit's gloomy eyes. Fong Bebe could not bear it. She suddenly took the initiative to hug Poplar Fruit for the first time. She wrapped her arms tightly around Poplar Fruit's waist and gently leaned her head on his chest. The front of Poplar Fruit's shirt was still dripping with water, but Fong Bebe did not have any scruples. She gently pressed against him and listened to Poplar Fruit's heartbeat. "Silly uncle," Fong Bebe said softly, "don't worry. I won't run away. I'll give you some time to think. Give me some time to think about it, okay?" Poplar Fruit's chin rested on Fong Bebe's head and gently ran his fingers through her wet hair. A faint fragrance entered his nose, like a blooming jasmine flower. "Uh-huh." Poplar Fruit responded with his nose and hugged Fong Bebe's soft body tightly. "I'll figure it out." When the two separated, Poplar Fruit said firmly. Fong Bebe walked 2 steps toward the dormitory door. She turned her head and wanted to say something. "Go back, don't catch a cold." Poplar Fruit waved at her and smiled. "The rain is going to stop, don't worry." Fong Bebe nodded and walked upstairs. After a week of outbursts, Xiao Han is also physically and mentally exhausted. There aren't many chapters left, so I can only resume 3 chapters. Xiao Han is quite loyal, right? He has never stopped updating. I don't know if there will be more outbursts in the future. Xiao Han can't promise everyone, but he will keep working hard. I hope everyone can continue to support Xiao Han and Kiki. Chapter 383. Back in the neighborhood. As soon as the door opened, Goldie, who had been cooped up in the car for a long time, could not help but jump out. It ignored Poplar Fruit and Kiki and ran straight home from the parking lot. Because his body was wet, Poplar Fruit had been using Kiki's small blanket to cushion his butt. This time, he used it to wrap around Kiki's body to prevent her from touching his body. "Papa, you didn't take off your clothes when you took a shower," Kiki said with a grin. "Daddy took a shower?" "Daddy didn't take a shower." Poplar Fruit was still thinking about what happened just now. Kiki's words, Poplar Fruit simply responded without thinking. "Papa's hair is still wet." Kiki pouted her small mouth and said, "Kiki's hair is also wet when I took a shower." "Oh, Daddy's hair is not wet when he took a shower," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Daddy was just caught in the rain. Look, it's still raining heavily outside. He carried his daughter to the window of the parking lot that led to the residential building and pointed outside to show her. Why did Papa get caught in the rain? Is it fun to get caught in the rain? Kiki curiously asked. Because Daddy did something wrong, so he had to stand in the rain and beg Bebe for forgiveness. Poplar Fruit explained, it's not fun to get caught in the rain. Getting caught in the rain is like Kiki doing something wrong, and Daddy wants you to stand as punishment. It's a punishment. Kiki nodded as if she understood. Her face revealed a scared expression. She pulled her father's hand, shook it, and said a little like a spoiled child, Papa, Kiki begs Bebe not to let Papa get caught in the rain. Papa, in the future, don't let Kiki stand as punishment, okay? That won't do. If you do something wrong, you have to be punished so that you won't do it again, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. So, Kiki and Dad have to be obedient, right? Yes. Kiki thought about it seriously and nodded obediently. When he returned to the apartment, Song Jiwon was already standing there with his door open. Hey, Lao Gua, can you look after this stupid dog? Song Jiwon stood there helplessly with his hands on his chest and said, You come and scratch my door all day long. So noisy. Poplar Fruit ignored his complaint, took out the key to open the door, and asked with a smile, Why are you back so early today? I went out with my leader to do something. When it rained, I took a taxi home. Song Jiwon put on a smile, just in time to come back and see if you brought my daughter's friend home. Poplar Fruit was going to confess today. He didn't hide this from Song Jiwon. Poplar Fruit even asked Song Jiwon, the former playboy, for advice on many of the confession procedures. Well, my daughter's friend. Poplar Fruit opened the door and smiled gently, neither sad nor happy. No way, did I remember wrongly? Song Jiwon went into Poplar Fruit's room. Before he went in, he closed his door. Gold jumped by his feet and excitedly ran home to roll around. It's today. Song Jiwon looked at the time on his phone, raised his head in confusion, and asked, You're so wet. Don't tell me the confession failed? Poplar Fruit put his daughter down, then shook his head and said, It can't be considered a failure. She said she would give us some time. We both need to think about it carefully. What's going on? Song Jiwon's heart was burning with a fire of gossip. He followed Poplar Fruit into the bedroom, walked out, and went to the bathroom, and kept asking. Poplar Fruit held the bathroom door with one hand, turned around, looked at Song Jiwon, and said helplessly, I want to change my clothes. You have to come in too. After that, he slammed the door and shut Song Jiwon outside. Hey, don't keep me in suspense like this. Song Jiwon shouted twice outside the door, but found that there was no effect. Poplar Fruit had already turned on the shower head and was taking a shower inside. Song Jiwon had to give up. He took a chair and sat in front of the bathroom door, wanting to wait for Poplar Fruit to come out before asking. However, when he heard Kiki talking to herself with a few dolls, Song Jiwon's eyes turned, and he turned his head to Kiki. Kiki, Song Jiwon said with a smile, do you think Uncle Mosquito usually treats you well? Kiki tilted her head and thought for a while, then shook her head and said, No. Song Jiwon was almost choked to death by Kiki's answer. He said resentfully, Why not? You see, Uncle Mosquito often buys you a lot of beautiful clothes. That was true, but most of the time, it was Kiki's godmother, Lu Suchin, who twisted his ear and forced him to buy them. Except for accompanying his sister, Song Jiwon was too lazy to go shopping himself. However, Kiki didn't know that. She thought for a while, then nodded and said, Well, Uncle Mosquito is very good to Kiki. That's right, Song Jiwon said with satisfaction. Kiki, tell Uncle Mosquito, how is your father today? Why is it raining so much? I know, Kiki said happily, because Papa did something wrong. What did your father do wrong? Song Jiwon wanted to get to the bottom of it. Something wrong. Kiki thought for a while and said, Kiki, no, Papa made Bebe angry. Song Jiwon felt that he had dug up a big piece of information. He continued to ask excitedly, How did he make Fong Bebe angry? It's Bebe. Kiki seriously corrected Song Jiwon's mistake. Yes, it's Bebe. Song Jiwon didn't have time to explain to Kiki and asked, How did your father make Bebe angry? Because Papa wants Bebe to be his girlfriend. Kiki naively thought that being a girlfriend was something, and she said to Song Jiwon in a childish voice, "So Bebe is angry. Uncle Mosquito, what is a girlfriend?" Girlfriend. Song Jiwon suddenly found that he had been led into a ditch by Kiki. Kiki's strange logic and understanding made Song Jiwon even more confused. Well, don't trick Kiki. Kiki, go play. Papa Fruit's voice sounded. He had already come out, and while wiping his hair, he walked over and said, "Since you want to know so much, I'll tell you." Papa Fruit began to tell Song Jiwon about today's confession. Wait, Song Jiwon hadn't finished listening and interrupted. "No way," she said that. 7%. 7%. Song Jiwon couldn't even remember the number after thinking about it. 78. 4%. Yes, Bebe said it. Poplar Fruit replied, "I'm going to faint. This Fong Bebe can't be a top student in the mathematics department, right?" Song Jiwon said, while covering his head. "Yes, she's a math major." Poplar Fruit nodded and said. When he was done narrating the entire process, Song Jiwon looked up at the sky, the ceiling. He was speechless. Then he sighed. "I didn't know it could be so torturous. I'm beginning to understand why you like her so much. Both of you are top students, a match made in heaven." Song Jiwon waved his hand in the direction of Poplar Fruit and murmured, "You don't have to say anything, just one word. I'm convinced." Chapter 384. Poplar Fruit stood beside a chair in Yongchang's by Airport's departure lounge as he helplessly watched Kiki run around him. She even hid from time to time, wanting to play hide and seek with her father. He didn't dare to sit down as he was afraid that this little girl would accidentally run out of his sight. But luckily, Kiki's bell-like laughter gave Poplar Fruit an accurate guide. Kiki herself also forgot and didn't know how to stop laughing when she hid. Yes, Poplar Fruit was about to set off again. This time, he was on a Beijing. Unexpectedly, had already started filming. Poplar Fruit delayed a few days because of his confession. Wana Tianyi also gave face to Poplar Fruit and asked the crew to delay Poplar Fruit scenes. This allowed Poplar Fruit to enjoy the treatment of an A-list celebrity. Poplar Fruit felt quite embarrassed, so the day after his confession, Poplar Fruit hurriedly packed his luggage and prepared to fly over. Ding dong. His phone vibrated in his trouser pocket. Poplar Fruit frowned and quickly took out his phone from his trouser pocket. After buying the tickets, Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment before sending a message to Fong Bebe. The content wasn't too complicated. It was more like a report to Fong Bebe that he was going to Beijing. However, it was for work. The translation company he worked at invested in a film, and so on. If Song Jiwon saw this, he would definitely scold him for being stupid. Poplar Fruit also didn't know why he did this. In fact, he didn't have to do this at all. But subconsciously, he was more willing to confess in exchange for peace of mind. The previous misunderstanding caused Fong Bebe to reject him. Poplar Fruit didn't want this to happen again. After the misunderstanding, he hurriedly tried to remedy it. This time it was pardonable, but if he kept making mistakes, no matter how soft-hearted Fong Bebe was, she wouldn't forgive him. I believe you. Although it was almost time to board the plane, Fong Bebe's message just arrived from Shanshan. However, this short reply made Poplar Fruit happy. Believe was just one word, but it was heavy. Poplar Fruit was indescribably touched. More importantly, he knew in his heart that this kind of trust was something he couldn't let down. "Let's go." Poplar Fruit put down his phone and walked over to carry Kiki. His heart was filled with sunshine, and his face couldn't stop smiling. As usual, they checked in their luggage. Because Kiki had grown up, Poplar Fruit didn't have to carry a big bag to carry Kiki's milk bottle and other things. Finally, they could take the plane easily. "Excuse me." Poplar Fruit took the plane ticket, squeezed through the registration crowd, and found his seat. Unfortunately, because it was summer vacation, air tickets were very tight. Poplar Fruit could only book economy class, and only got one ticket. Kiki could only squeeze with her father. Fortunately, because Poplar Fruit sat near the aisle, compared to the seat near the window, it was still considered spacious. Suddenly, a young woman's voice with a strange accent sounded in Poplar Fruit's ear. "You're rich. I'll catch you inside. Can you please shout?" Poplar Fruit turned his head and saw that it was a very young girl. Her looks were not bad, and she was not considered pretty, but she belonged to the delicate and pretty type. Poplar Fruit knew that she was not Chinese. Her Mandarin pronunciation was a little floaty, but she looked Asian. He didn't know which country she was from. Judging from her accent, she could be from South Korea or Japan. "You're rich." The girl saw that Poplar Fruit was in a daze and didn't move, so she asked again. It was his occupational habit. Poplar Fruit woke up. He quickly stood up with Kiki in his arms and let the girl in. "Thank you," the girl said politely after she sat down. Just based on her politeness, Poplar Fruit almost thought that she was a girl from Japan. However, people from Japan seemed to nod when they said thank you. She saw Kiki in Poplar Fruit's arms looking at her curiously and called out happily, "What a rich and cute little girl." "Haha, thank you. This is my daughter. Her name is Kiki." Poplar Fruit laughed and introduced her. "Kiki, you're rich. My Chinese name is Li Shishan." Li Shishan happily extended her right hand to Kiki. Kiki didn't quite understand. Poplar Fruit smiled and helped guide her. He held Kiki's little hand and shook it with Li Shishan. Poplar Fruit praised, "You speak Chinese very well. Which country are you from?" Compared to most of the foreigners that Poplar Fruit met, her Mandarin was indeed not bad. Although it wasn't perfect, the grammar in her speech was still very standard. This made Poplar Fruit a little curious. "Really?" Li Shishan asked happily. "I'm from South Korea. I'm studying Chinese at a university in China for an exchange. It's a holiday today, so I'm preparing to go home." "Then you're learning really well." Poplar Fruit gave her a thumbs up. "Which university?" "Higashiyama University?" Poplar Fruit was still wondering if he met an exchange student from the same university. In the end, Li Shishan told him that she was studying at the Guangdong University of Foreign Studies in Guangzhou. That made sense. That place had the most language exchange students. Li Shishan scrutinized Chi-Chi. Suddenly, a long string of Korean words came out of her mouth. She was talking to herself. She was talking to herself. Of course, she would not bother to translate it into awkward Chinese. However, what she didn't know was that the person sitting in front of her was someone who was fluent in more than 10 languages. Not only did Yanghua hear every word she said, but he also understood what she meant. "Why does this little girl look so familiar? I think I've seen her somewhere before. Where have I seen her before?" Poplar Fruit scratched his head, wondering if he should tell her that he could understand South Korean. Li Shishan took out her phone from her bag and started looking for it. "Where is it? I think I saw it on some social media app." "Aya!" Li Shishan suddenly screamed in a low voice. She turned around and looked at Poplar Fruit in disbelief. "Aya, aren't you Poplar Fruit Appa? Smita?" Perhaps it was because she was too excited, but Li Shishan asked in her mother tongue. Poplar Fruit scratched his head, not knowing how she knew him. He could only reply in South Korean, "Yes, I'm Poplar Fruit." Li Shishan blushed. When she heard Poplar Fruit speak South Korean, she understood that Poplar Fruit could speak her country's language, and he could speak it very well. She wanted to apologize and translate for Poplar Fruit in Chinese, but there was no need for that now. That was even better. Li Shishan hadn't been able to speak South Korean for a long time in Yangqing. She said excitedly, "Poplar Fruit Appa, you can speak South Korean?" I'm too excited, Smita, I'm sorry. It's my first time meeting you. I'm very happy." She was a little incoherent. Chapter 385. "Papa, what is Semaida?" Kiki did not understand, but she accurately grasped the word that appeared the most frequently in Li Shishan's words, so she asked curiously. "Semaida." Semaida is a tone word in Korean. Poplar Fruit himself also realized that this explanation was too difficult to understand, so he smiled and said, "It has the same meaning as ama and I." Chi-Chi blinked her eyes as if she didn't fully understand. She asked again, "What's a stick? Is it delicious?" "Hee, Kiki is so cute. I like you so much." Li Shishan was so amused by Kiki that she covered her mouth and laughed. Unfortunately, she was not considered pretty, so the way she laughed did not make Poplar Fruit's eyes light up. This made Poplar Fruit a little worried. Didn't they say that the women in Korea were all processed beauties? Could there be a fish that escaped the net? He did not dare to say it out loud. All right, how did you know me? Poplar Fruit started chat with her in Chinese again. Did we know each other before? Can we speak Korean? Li Shishan looked at Poplar Fruit pitifully and said, It's very difficult for me to speak Chinese, unlike Poplar Fruit Appa, who is good at it. Okay. Poplar Fruit shrugged indifferently and replied in Korean. It's like this. After switching back to her mother tongue, Li Shishan seemed to have opened up a chatterbox and happily said, Poplar Fruit Appa, many of our friends follow your Weibo, especially the University of Foreign Studies in Guangdong Province. Many girls I know follow you, and they especially like to read your Weibo. Really? Poplar Fruit scratched his head a little embarrassedly. I didn't know that I was so popular. The number of fans on his Weibo was steadily increasing. If he remembered correctly, what a joke. How could he remember incorrectly? The last time he posted on Weibo, he already had 450,000 followers. Although this number was much lower than that of a celebrity, he was still considered an internet celebrity. Poplar Fruit didn't pay much attention to who was paying attention to him, but he was still flattered to be pursued by a group of young and beautiful university students. What was the situation now? Poplar Fruit pondered in his heart. Could it be a chance encounter with a fan? Next was the signature, or a group photo. Why was she behaving like a superstar? Poplar Fruit was secretly delighted. Yes, everyone is saying that Kiki is so cute. If we can have a child as beautiful and cute as Kiki in the future, how happy would that be? Li Shishan clasped his hands and rested them on his cheeks, making a longing look. Poplar Fruit shook and almost fell down. He looked at Li Shishan with some frustration and helplessness. Li Shishan's attention was not on him at all. He wanted to cry, but had no tears. It turned out that he was a fan of Kiki and didn't have any thoughts about him at all. Poplar Fruit Appa, can I take a picture with Kiki? Li Shishan begged Poplar Fruit with a somewhat coquettish tone. If my Chinese friends see this, they will be very envious of my smekta. Although the limelight was stolen by Kiki, Poplar Fruit was not dissatisfied. He really wasn't a person who liked to be in the limelight. He was just a little conflicted, but Poplar Fruit was calm. He smiled and said, Okay, it's okay. Isn't it just a picture? Give me your phone. I'll take it for you. Before taking the picture, Poplar Fruit first asked Kiki to go over. He pulled Kiki's little hand and asked with a smile, Kiki, the sister next to you wants to hug you. Can you play with sister for a while? Kiki leaned her head on her father's chest and turned to look at the big sister who was speaking in a strange smekta language. She shook her head decisively. Kiki was very principled. She didn't want to be hugged by strangers. Li Shishan's eyes turned. She took out a crystal butterfly hair clip from her bag and waved it in front of Kiki's eyes. She said with a smile, Kiki, you're rich. Take a selfie with sister, and sister will give you this. Isn't that rich? Although it was not real crystal, the texture of the butterfly's wings was clear and lifelike. Poplar Fruit could still guess that the hair clip was expensive for plastic to be so delicate. He quickly refused and said, Miss Li Shishan, this can't be. This gift is too expensive. Li Shishan shook her head and said, It's okay. This is my family's product. I don't need to pay for it. The gift is very small. Poplar Fruit Appa, please don't mind. So she was a rich second generation. No wonder she kept saying that she was rich. She was indeed rich. When Chi-Chi saw the beautiful crystal butterfly hair clip, she couldn't help but blink her eyes. She glanced at her father and suddenly opened her arms towards Li Shishan with a smile on her face. Principals couldn't withstand a single blow from a beautiful accessory. Li Shishan happily took Kiki over. She also kindly helped Kiki tidy her hair and put the crystal butterfly hair clip on. Kiki happened to be wearing a white dress today. With the crystal hair clip, she looked like a little princess and was very cute. Wow, Kiki is so beautiful. Li Shishan kissed Kiki. She happily stuffed the phone into Poplar Fruit's hand and urged, Poplar Fruit Appa, help me take a picture with our little beauty. No, take a few more pictures. Poplar Fruit also wanted to take a few more pictures. But just when he raised the phone and before he could focus, a stewardess came over and gently reminded Poplar Fruit that the plane was about to take off. She told him to turn off his phone and fasten his seatbelt. Poplar Fruit was helpless. He could only take a picture and return the phone to Li Shishan. I'm sorry, the picture wasn't very good. How about we wait for the plane to take a picture? Poplar Fruit said with an apologetic tone. It's okay. Li Shishan glanced at the photo, turned off his phone, and smiled half-jokingly. With this photo, I can show off to my Chinese friends. Oh my God, I actually met Chi-Chi in person, and I even got a photo with her. It's incredible. They'll be so envious of me. No way. Poplar Fruit still didn't quite believe that Kiki could have such charm. He was deeply puzzled by Li Shishan's excited and trembling appearance. Of course, Li Shishan said seriously, Chi-Chi is very cute. We all like her big eyes very much. They're so cute. In gold, Smita, we all like to have such a beautiful golden retriever. Poplar Fruit Appa, if a boy gives me a dog as obedient and cute as gold, I will die of happiness. Poplar Fruit's eyebrows trembled stiffly. The scene of gold sneaking behind Kiki and doing bad things appeared in his mind. His status was not as high as Kiki's, but he couldn't even compare to a dog. Sigh, I really don't understand the people after the 90s. No, it should be that I don't understand the current society. Have we entered the era of appearance? Chapter 386. When they arrived in Beijing, Poplar Fruit waved goodbye to the Korean girl who was transferring planes in Beijing. Li Shishan was very reluctant to part with him. If it weren't for the fact that she was about to board the plane again, she would have wanted to stay by Poplar Fruit's side. Well, of course, the main thing was to play with our cute Kiki. After leaving Beijing Airport, Poplar Fruit hailed a taxi alone. This time, he did not tell Zheng Yujie that he was coming, nor did he have the time to inform Wan Yiqiani. Poplar Fruit did not look for Zheng Yujie on purpose. When he thought of Zheng Yujie's deep love for him, his head started to hurt. Did Poplar Fruit have feelings for Zheng Yujie? Poplar Fruit did not want to think about this question himself. He repeatedly reminded himself that he and Zheng Yujie were just friends, very good friends. However, in his heart, perhaps there was still a bit of softness that was touched by Zheng Yujie's confession on the mountain that day. However, Poplar Fruit subconsciously hid this feeling deep down. When he thought of Zheng Yujie, Poplar Fruit recalled what Lin Xingshan said to him. What Bebe hates the most is when people lie to her. Poplar Fruit did not know what happened to Fong Bebe in the past. Lin Xingshan wanted to say something, but stopped herself. Poplar Fruit could roughly guess some of the secrets that she almost revealed. However, these were not important. What he cared about was how Fong Bebe felt now. He only knew that if anything happened between him and Zheng Yujie, then he would be lying to Fong Bebe. Facing the bold and persistent Zheng Yujie, Poplar Fruit did not have much confidence that he could control himself. Poplar Fruit did not even dare to think about what happened between him and Zheng Yujie in the past. A great beauty with a hot body like Zheng Yujie lingered around him, inadvertently revealing her naked body, inadvertently touching his body, and inadvertently forceful kisses. If this continued, what other accidents would happen? It was better to avoid it for a while. Perhaps when he really established a relationship with Fong Bebe, Zheng Yujie would give up. Then, when they met again, there would not be too much ambiguity, right? Poplar Fruit persuaded himself with this thought in his heart, although he did not quite believe it himself. After getting into the taxi, Poplar Fruit called the Beast. Ah, Poplar Fruit, you're already in Beijing? The Beast was very surprised by Poplar Fruit's early arrival. He shouted, Didn't you say that you would be coming the day after tomorrow? I haven't arranged your scenes yet. The sound from the phone was a little noisy. Poplar Fruit heard a lot of people talking next to him, and someone was shouting with a loudspeaker. Poplar Fruit guessed that the Beast should be on set. Previously, Poplar Fruit did agree with the crew that he would arrive the day after tomorrow. That was because he estimated that if his confession was successful, he would need to spend a few days with Fong Bebe and then persuade her to come to Beijing with him. So he set aside a few days. But now the situation had changed. I've finished dealing with my personal matters, and I don't have anything else to do, so I just came a little earlier, Poplar Fruit explained with a smile. I see, the beast said in his unique, fresh voice. But you haven't filmed your scenes today. Do you want me to ask a staff member to pick you up and take you to the hotel to settle down first? The beast was a little embarrassed. Poplar Fruit's sudden appearance in advance disrupted his work plan. Now the set was a mess, and he had no time to deal with Poplar Fruit at all. It was difficult for one person to receive Poplar Fruit, let alone him. Although Wanichani had been established for a few years, he was still considered a newcomer in the industry. The company was neither big nor small, and everyone had multiple jobs. Not only him, but even the director Zimo also had to be an actor, and the stage management was done by everyone together. However, Poplar Fruit was an executive of a big client after all. He did not dare to casually brush off Poplar Fruit, so he could only grit his teeth and squeeze someone out. His eyes scanned the entire crew, and he muttered in his heart, "Who should I look for? Xiao Ge? No, Xiao Ji scenes today are very important, but the others are not as beautiful as Xiao Ge." The beast was in a dilemma, but Poplar Fruit was not as complicated as he thought. "No, there's no need to go through so much trouble." Poplar Fruit laughed. "Just tell me where your crew is, and I'll go directly to you. The filming will go according to your plan. It doesn't matter if I don't have any scenes. I'll go and learn from you first. I'm still a complete amateur in acting. Since you're here, you can only stay in the village tonight. Our conditions here are quite ordinary. Why don't you stay in a hotel first, settle down, and come back tomorrow?" The beast said, a little embarrassed. "Everyone is staying in the village. I'm not special." Poplar Fruit laughed. "Don't worry, beast. I also came from the village. I can get used to it." Although he had brought Kiki with him, Poplar Fruit felt that it was okay to let Kiki suffer a little occasionally. "So easy to talk to?" The beast breathed a sigh of relief. He liked Poplar Fruit greatly, so he happily sent the location of the crew to Poplar Fruit. Xinghong's Soup Village? The suburbs. The taxi driver glanced at the address on Poplar Fruit's mobile phone, turned his head, and looked at Poplar Fruit in surprise. "That place is very far away. It's more than 200 kilometers from here. Do you really want to go?" Although the capital was getting bigger and bigger, there were still some small villages in the periphery. They were located in the mountains and had highways, but it would take 2 or 3 hours to get there. It would probably be dark by the time they got there. "Go, it's okay." Poplar Fruit scratched his head. More than 200 kilometers. Poplar Fruit did not expect it to be so far. He guessed that he would not be able to make it in time for today's filming. However, since he had already said it, he could not break his promise. Isn't there an English proverb that goes like this? Better late than never. Fortunately, it was summer and the daytime was longer. The sun was still high in the sky at 5 o'clock. Poplar Fruit arrived at the set before the crew finished work. Poplar Fruit. The beast came out to greet him with makeup. Although it was the first time they met, Poplar Fruit still recognized him at a glance. It was normal. When Poplar Fruit was in school, he had watched funny videos of beasts. At that time, beasts had not started their own businesses. Poplar Fruit could not help laughing when he saw the beast's thick cassock, a string of big Buddha beads hanging on his chest, and his big bald head, which had become his unique symbol. Kiki was held by her father. When she saw such a strange uncle in front of her, she was a little scared and put her arms around her father's neck. She whispered in her father's ear, "Papa, is this uncle a bad guy?" "Poplar Fruit, it's me." I'm sorry. Poplar Fruit held back his laughter. While apologizing for himself and his daughter, he reached out to hold the beast's hand and said with a smile, "I really did not expect that you would play the role of Tang Sanzang. It's really..." Poplar Fruit could not find any adjectives to describe it. "You must have not expected that you would see such a handsome Tang Sanzang, right?" The beast showed his sense of humor, as always. The white and slightly fat round face, which could not be considered handsome, showed his signature confident smile. Chapter 387. Is this the Kiki you were talking about on the phone? She's so cute. She looks like you. When the beast wasn't being funny, he was a bit gentle and refined. However, the mole on his right lip didn't give off a proper feeling. Kiki pouted and turned her head away, unwilling to look at the beast. As she said before, this uncle was a big bad guy. Poplar Fruit had told the beast about his situation before he came. He was worried about leaving Kiki in Yangcheng, so he wanted to bring her to the set. The beast hesitated for a long time before agreeing. However, Kiki was so uncooperative and showed a strong sense of dislike in front of the beast. This made Poplar Fruit feel quite embarrassed. "I'm sorry, she's a bit afraid of strangers. It's okay, she'll be fine after a while." Poplar Fruit said apologetically, "It's okay, I'm confident. Back in the day, my fans ranged from 80-year-old grannies to 3-year-old children. They were from all ages." The beast with a good attitude said. When the beast said this, he looked very serious. The more serious he was, the more it contrasted with his jokes. This was the beast that Poplar Fruit was familiar with. He was so good at talking. On the way to the set, Poplar Fruit couldn't stop laughing at the beast's endless dry humor. Kiki still couldn't understand the deeper meaning of the beast's words. She didn't pay attention to the conversation between her father and the beast. Kiki was more interested in the beast's bald head. In the beginning, Kiki was a bit afraid. However, slowly, Kiki felt that the big bad guy in front of her wasn't as scary as she thought. She was a bit restless. "Papa." Kiki tugged at Poplar Fruit's clothes and secretly raised her eyes, afraid that the beast would hear. Poplar Fruit excused himself with his eyes and lowered his head to listen to his daughter's needs. "Kiki wants to touch it." Kiki whispered into her father's ear. Looking from the back, the bald head called Sho looked like a braised egg. Chi-Chi had never seen a person without hair on his head. Even Gold had fine hair when it was young. The more she looked, the more curious Kiki became. She really wanted to touch that shiny melon seed. "That's rude. How could Poplar Fruit agree to Kiki's request?" He tried to educate her. "Uncle will be angry." "What makes you angry?" the beast asked curiously. He had heard Poplar Fruit's refusal, but had not heard Kiki's previous request. "No, it's just that the kids are too naughty," Poplar Fruit explained with a smile. He did not elaborate, as he felt that it would put both parties in an awkward position. Chi-Chi pouted her little mouth. She wasn't very happy. She was still looking at the beast's shiny head reluctantly. When they arrived at the set, they were still filming. Because there was a group of people around, Poplar Fruit could only see a skinny man dressed as Sun Wukong from the outside. He was holding a loudspeaker and shouting. That's one of the co-directors and main actors of our micro-movie this time, Zimmo. Although he's the co-director in name, he's the main director of this movie now. I'll be assisting him. Zimmo is also a rising star in Wanha. The beast followed Poplar Fruit's gaze and said with a smile, "Let's go. I'll introduce you to each other." "Beast." Poplar Fruit quickly pulled the beast back and said with a smile, "Let's wait for him to finish filming before we go. It's not good to disturb everyone's work. I'll just watch from the side." Poplar Fruit's attitude made the beast's impression of him better and better. As an executive of an advertising company, he was so humble and could treat others humbly. It was really rare. A few advertisers had come to the micro-movies that Yaosho had filmed in the past. Although they hadn't interfered with his work in the end, they would give him a few opinions from time to time. It even felt like they were nitpicking. This made the entire crew unhappy. How good would it be if every advertiser could be like Poplar Fruit? "Uncle Che." Kiki's eyes were very sharp. She saw Che and Jun in the crowd at one glance. She pointed at Che and Jun happily and called out. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit reacted quickly and quickly covered Kiki's little mouth. Otherwise, with Kiki's voice, everyone's attention would definitely be attracted. "Lower your voice." Poplar Fruit raised an index finger in front of his mouth and shushed Kiki. He said, "Don't disturb Uncle Che. He's acting." "Shoo." Kiki followed suit and raised her little finger to blow. She shrank her little head, lowered her voice, and quietly asked her father, "Papa, what do you mean by acting?" "Look." Poplar Fruit pointed at Che and Jun with a smile and said to his daughter, "Didn't your Uncle Che make up a pig's head? Big ears and a big nose. That's acting. Your Uncle Che is going to act as Zhu Beiji. Haven't you seen Zhu Beiji on TV?" Kiki nodded as if she understood, but then she shook her head and said, "No, Zhu Beiji is very fat." She also used her hands to make a big belly in front of her. "That's because our Zhu Beiji is not an ordinary Zhu Beiji. Our Zhu Beiji is a Zhu Beiji who has successfully lost weight. The Zodiac Beast interrupted with a smile. Of course, he wants to lose weight. Poplar Fruit saw Che and Juan and the others again. Che and Juan walked past Sun Wukong, who was scratching his head and cheeks, and the silly Sand Monk with his arms around a petite and lovely village girl. Sand Monk was a modern man named Wang Dachui. According to the script, the camera would zoom in, and Wang Dachui's stunned and envious expression would occupy the whole screen. He would say something very interesting. Holy shit, I finally get it. The one who works hard is a pig, but the one who works hard to lose weight and wins the heart of beauty is Zhu Beiji. However, during the shooting, these were two shots, which would be pieced together with special effects. Cut. Zhang Binyu, the scriptwriter, who was staring at the viewfinder, shouted. He walked over and shouted, "Little girl, you're taking too big a step this time. Remember, you're not a tough woman. You're a cute and lovable Miss Gao Lao Zhuang." Sun Wukong, who was the assistant director Zimo, ran over to watch the playback and agreed with his judgment. He said with a smile, "Lao Bai and Brother Che acted very well this time. Just follow this line again. It doesn't matter. We can pass this line after one more time." Watching from afar, Poplar Fruit suddenly felt that Che and Juan was very engrossed in acting. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Poplar Fruit wouldn't have believed that Che and Juan, who was usually laughing and joking, would listen so carefully. He had been standing there for so long, but Che and Juan didn't notice his arrival. Seeing Poplar Fruit observing Che and Juan, the beast came over and said with a smile, "Poplar Fruit, you brought us a good actor. Although he doesn't have much experience, he is very talented in this field. He can get into the role with just a little help. Very good, very promising. In the future, he will become the pillars of our company together with Lao Bai." Poplar Fruit looked at the beast in surprise. He didn't expect that the beast would give Che and Juan such a high evaluation. Chapter 388. This was Poplar Fruit's first time watching someone else shoot a movie. Although it was not a very high-budget micro-movie, the set and crew still gave Poplar Fruit a great shock. 1 minute on stage, 10 years of hard work off stage. This sentence could be used in a movie, and it was also in line with what Poplar Fruit was seeing at the moment. Because it was just 2 short scenes, the editing time was estimated to be less than 10 seconds, but the crew went back and forth for half an hour. Of course, this was also related to the actor's skills. For such a simple script, if it was done by a veteran actor, there probably wouldn't be any NGs. However, the crew's spirit of striving for perfection made Poplar Fruit feel quite touched, and it also gave Poplar Fruit a lot of pressure. Poplar Fruit was good at other things, but he was not good at acting. He believed that he could not express his emotions in detail like Che and Juan and Baiku. When the time came, he would definitely make mistakes. Before coming, Poplar Fruit was still thinking that although his acting was not that good, he could memorize his lines. With such a memory, at least when he was performing, there would not be any problems when he was saying his lines. At least, he could cover up his shortcomings a little. Who knew that Beast's micro-movie would be dubbed after it was done? When acting, all he had to do was slightly lip-sync, and the dubbing would be done. Who cared if he could remember it or not? This made Poplar Fruit want to cry, but no tears came out. His only strength could not be used. It seemed like he was really going to make a fool of himself. Thinking that he might have to NGs countless times in the future, Poplar Fruit sighed in his heart. After the crew finished filming, Poplar Fruit and the crew got to know each other under the introduction of Beast. There was no need to talk about Che and Juan, but the actual director, Zimo, Poplar Fruit, was also a genius from his speech and performance just now. Baiku, who played the role of the transmigrated Sand Monk, did not know Poplar Fruit, but Poplar Fruit had admired him for a long time. Baiku and Poplar Fruit both graduated in the same year. When they graduated, they both did very unusual things. Poplar Fruit sowed seeds and gave birth to Kiki in a daze. As for Baiku, he and his roommate did a Chinese dub for a very famous comic in Nihon country, and it became popular. Poplar Fruit had seen this video before he graduated. Everyone in the dormitory was laughing so hard that they could still remember that scene. The others were also brimming with talent. For example, that petite and lovely Xiao Gu. It was said that she used to be the top scorer in the college entrance examination. She hadn't even graduated yet, but Wanha and Tianyi had taken a liking to her. There was also the special effects team that had helped Poplar Fruit before, as well as the scriptwriter team that had created such a wonderful script. Poplar Fruit realized that this group of people was really full of talents. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but be filled with confidence in them. After all, he was still a member of Cinda Translation. Occasionally, he still had to consider the company's advertising investment. Although there was still a long way to go before the production of the entire micro-movie was completed, Poplar Fruit suddenly felt that perhaps this investment would really make Cinda Translation a lot of money. Kiki was snatched away by Xiao Gu and the other girls who were overflowing with maternal love. The cute Kiki was the best at acting cute in front of these girls. After a while, Kiki's arms were filled with many small accessories, and there were many kiss marks on her face. Bye, show. You guys go change your clothes and remove your makeup first. Looking at the time on his phone, Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Let's go eat together later. Find a big restaurant. It's my treat." When he said that, everyone looked at him strangely, including Baisho. This made Poplar Fruit a little nervous. He scratched his head and asked, "What? Did I say something wrong?" He was a little worried that he had accidentally violated someone's taboo. Every industry had its own rules. For example, in Hong Kong, people had to worship God when they were shooting a movie. Maybe they wouldn't even treat them to a meal when they were shooting a video. Poplar Fruit. Che and Juan came over and explained to Poplar Fruit, "Look around here. It's a barren mountain. If you want to treat us to a meal, we can find a restaurant." "Huh, I forgot about that." Poplar Fruit scratched his head and laughed. "I'm sorry, everyone. I'll remember this time. When we go back, I'll treat everyone to a meal." Poplar Fruit's straightforwardness made everyone look at him in a new light. In the eyes of many Northerners, most of the people in Guangdong province were relatively stingy. In fact, it was a misunderstanding of doing things shrewdly. For example, Che and Juan, when everyone was drinking together, he was a thief. He cheated all kinds of people. After a round of drinking, he didn't even finish half a glass of white wine. "Baisho, Baisho." Suddenly, Xiao Gu waved at Baisho from the two girls in the makeup group. Her eyes were rolling, and no one knew what she was thinking. Speaking of which, there were a total of 5 women in Baisho's crew. 2 of them were logistics aunties. A beautiful and generous girl like Xiao Gu was the treasure of the crew. "What's wrong?" As soon as she called, Baisho ran over and decisively left Poplar Fruit behind. "Go." At Xiao Ji's command, the other 2 girls giggled and each grabbed the beast with one hand. "Oh, kidnapped. Oh, Wukong, there's a demon. Come and save Master." The beast didn't know what was going on, so it decided to play along with them. It pretended to struggle and yell at the same time. Everyone in the crew couldn't help but laugh. Zimo looked up to the sky and laughed. "Haha. Monk, you also have a day like this. Go in peace and follow the demon back to the village. Leave the scriptures to us 3 brothers." After saying that, Zimo, Baiku, and Che and Juan laughed and stood there with their arms around each other's shoulders. Poplar Fruit laughed while looking at Kiki in confusion. At this time, Kiki was carried by Xiao Gu, and the 2 of them sneaked to the back of the battlefield. "And what are they doing?" Poplar Fruit was a little confused. Poplar Fruit was confused, but Baisho was confused. His hands were tightly held by the 2 girls, so he didn't see the back. Xiao Gu hugged Kiki and covered her mouth to laugh. They went behind Baisho. First, Xiao Gu reached out a hand and touched Baisho's bald head. Kiki also giggled, and her little hand appeared above Baisho's head. After being touched by the 2 girls, Baisho finally understood what was going on. He changed his line. "Oh, molestation. Wukong, you can't leave me in the lurch. The demon is molesting me." There were already a few crew members who were laughing so hard that they were lying on the ground, hammering the grass with all their might. Poplar Fruit finally understood. It must be Kiki's doing. It was easy to guess that this little girl still couldn't forget Baisho's head. Poplar Fruit didn't fulfill her wish, so she told Xiao Gu and the other girls who were obedient to her. She was too evil. Poplar Fruit stood at the side and laughed while holding his stomach. He had no intention of helping Baisho or apologizing to his daughter. Well, Baisho's screams were loud, but he still looked like he was enjoying it. Serves you right. Poplar Fruit laughed and shouted with Zimo and the others. Chapter 389. Poplar Fruit had been observing the crew earlier, but he did not know that he had also become the subject of everyone's observation. Che and Yuan had been in the capital for more than half a month. After he joined Wanhetiani, he became very familiar with this group of people. The crew learned from Che and Yuan that Poplar Fruit was very powerful. Che and Yuan had shown them his kung fu before. Although it was not lethal in a real fight, it was amazing enough in the eyes of ordinary people. A master who could jump over a 3-meter-high wall without using his hand said that even 10 of him would not be able to defeat one Poplar Fruit, which made everyone feel incredulous. They had been guessing before. Could it be that the legendary genius who knew 13 languages was big and tall? In their hearts, there was only a fierce image of 8 feet tall, with a wide face, big ears, a straight nose, and a square mouth. Wasn't that Lu Jishin who uprooted the weeping willow? Now, their thoughts were, what kind of joke is this? The big boy in front of him had delicate features and was quite tall. His long legs made all the boys who were less than 175 meters tall envious, jealous, and hateful. However, he had the appearance of a weak scholar and was holding a little girl who was carved out of jade. This imperceptibly weakened his martial prowess. Looking at such a gentle and amiable big boy, the rumor that he was proficient in 13 languages was more believable. How could he be a martial arts master? What a joke. They did not believe it. Everyone shook their heads and their hearts. They thought that Che and Yuan, this cunning guy, must have deceived everyone. Since everyone thought it was a joke, no one bothered with this question anymore. Xiao Ge brought Kiki to play with the beast for a while, and they also let go of him. 2 girls from a makeup team led a group of people in strange clothes to the side of the tent with blushing faces to remove their makeup. The makeup of the beast and the transmigrators were the easiest to remove. They just needed to change their clothes and wash their foundation. Changyuan's was not difficult either. The pig ears and nose were half hung and half glued on. The one that was really troublesome was Zimo's. Although it looked fake, the golden monkey fur was stuck on with a special glue. It took a lot of effort to remove it. By the time he came out, everyone had already packed up their things. Papa, Kiki is hungry. Kiki clutched the plastic bag with one hand and hugged her father's leg with the other, interrupting Poplar Fruit and Che Enjuan's reminiscing. Hungry. Poplar Fruit squatted down with a smile and picked up Kiki. He reached for the suitcase he brought with him and remembered that they were in the middle of nowhere. Whether it was milk or oatmeal, there was no way he could make them for Kiki. By the way, how are you going to settle your dinner? Poplar Fruit nudged Che and Yuan and asked. There's a village at the foot of the mountain. We've booked the farmhouse in the village. There are 2 big courtyards. The people here are quite nice. They prepared food for us. We can eat when we go back, Che and Yuan said with a smile. So that's how it is. Poplar Fruit nodded. He smiled and said to the beast next to him, Kiki said she's hungry. Why don't I go down the mountain with her first? I have to cook something for her. She can't digest adult food. The beast nodded and said with a smile, no problem. I'll let Xiaoga go down with you. She's a girl. She won't be of much help if she stays up here. Xiaoga agreed readily. Then she led Poplar Fruit down the mountain. At this time, Kiki saw that the sky was dark and the mountain wind was rustling in all directions. She was scared and hugged her father tightly, refusing to let anyone else hold her. Xiaoga had to give up. She wanted to help Poplar Fruit pull the suitcase. In the end, the extra-large suitcase was not something a petite girl like Xiaoga could handle. It was very difficult to pull the suitcase. Seeing Poplar Fruit easily lift it with one hand, Xiaogu opened her mouth. She did not expect Poplar Fruit to be so strong. Instead, she lamented that she was a tough girl but had a delicate body. The farmhouse cost 500 yuan a day. Food and accommodation were included. There were a total of 20 people in the crew. On average, each person cost less than 50 yuan. It was very cheap. Of course, It was impossible to have a room for one person. There were few girls, so they were a little more relaxed. For men, 5 or 6 people could squeeze in a room or sleep in the car. Anyway, it was hot in summer, and they were not afraid of catching a cold. Poplar Fruit borrowed the kitchen of the courtyard where the girls' room was located. He began to choose ingredients. The big freezer was filled with vegetables and fruits given by the host. These were all homegrown and could be eaten and used as much as they wanted. There was also a lot of chicken and pork in the smaller freezer. Poplar Fruit could not help but sigh. The countryside was so good. There was plenty of delicious food. Look at the bright and plump tomatoes, the cabbage with wormholes, and the pork and chicken in the freezer were all raised in the countryside. They were all green and pollution-free ingredients. It was rare to see them in big cities. By the way, Xiaoke, before Poplar Fruit was ready to eat, he took out a stack of about a few thousand yuan from his pocket and said to her, "Can you help me rent another courtyard next door? Kiki and I may have a room to ourselves." "Isn't that too much? Isn't it enough to rent one room? Why do you need a courtyard? There are 3 rooms in a courtyard," Xiao Gu said exaggeratedly with her northeastern accent. "It's okay." Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Aren't you very crowded? The rooms I have are just enough for everyone to live in. Go. Don't disturb me when I'm cooking." Xiao Gu wanted to decline, but Poplar Fruit pushed her out with a smile. Back in the kitchen, Poplar Fruit looked at so many vegetables and felt that the kitchen knife in his hand was a little thirsty. However, if he made too much, Kiki would not be able to finish it. If he made too little, he felt like he had entered a treasure mountain but returned empty-handed. Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes. That's right, there were still more than 20 people in the crew. He might as well have more dishes for them. Poplar Fruit had seen the crew's dishes. They were SOSO, hand-torn cabbage, stir-fried meat with cucumber, and scrambled eggs with bitter gourd. The only thing that was passable was a braised fish, which was made at a very low level. However, Poplar Fruit also knew that the uncles and aunties in the countryside helped to make the dishes. They were all homemade skills, so he could not ask for more. However, now that Poplar Fruit was here, he could not let these high-quality ingredients go to waste. First, he lit a fire for Kiki's porridge. Poplar Fruit turned around with a smile and touched Kiki's little head, who was sitting on the suitcase behind him. He winked at her with his right eye, stretched out his right face, and said, "Kiki, Papa is going to show his skills. Come, give Papa a reward." Kissing her father, Kiki clapped her little hands and said with a smile, "Papa makes delicious food, hee." Encouraged by his daughter, Poplar Fruit was in high spirits. He rolled up his sleeves and shouted, "It's showtime." Chapter 390. Open the courtyard door. A loud shout was heard, and the courtyard door was opened by 2 men who jumped out of the car. The crew's car slowly drove in. The crew had a total of 3 cars, a minibus for people, a small pickup truck for transporting filming equipment and other equipment, and a small van that had just driven in. It was convenient to drive on the mountain road, and it could be used for emergencies, such as picking up and dropping off anyone. Otherwise, who would need a minibus to do something in the city? It was too wasteful. Just as Yao Shou and the others jumped out of the van, Xiao Gu came up to them with a smile and said, "Just now, Mr. Yang booked a new courtyard. You guys don't have to squeeze together to pick up soap anymore. Are you feeling a little disappointed?" "Xiao Gu, I think you're wrong," said the man righteously. "What do you mean squeezing together to pick up soap? We're hugging each other and sacrificing for our career." By the way, the man suddenly frowned and looked at Xiao Gu, who was covering her mouth and laughing, and asked, "What did you just say? Poplar Fruit rented another courtyard? Why did you say that to him? It's not a problem for us to squeeze together to sleep. Don't make him pay again. Don't think we're a black-hearted crew." Xiao Gu felt wronged. She pouted and said, "Who said I tricked him into renting it? It's obvious that he wanted to rent it himself. I advised him." Che and Juan just came over and heard the conversation between the man and Xiao Gu. He laughed and said, "I thought something big happened. So it's like this. Come on, man, don't blame Xiao Gu. It must be Poplar Fruit who forced Xiao Gu to do it. Don't be shy. Anyway, it's already rented." Che and Juan laughed and said, "Poplar Fruit is rich. A few thousand yuan is nothing to him. He can earn it back in minutes as a translator. As a friend of poplar fruit, Che and Yuan did not pursue the matter any further. He was broad-minded. After blaming Xiao Gu wrongly, he immediately apologized to her. "I'm sorry, Xiao Gu. I didn't investigate clearly before I blamed you. I'm sorry. Hey, what's the big deal?" Xiao Gu waved his hand generously, indicating that it was fine. "By the way, where's poplar fruit?" Che and Yuan asked curiously. "Why don't I see him? Could it be that he's packing up in the new compound?" "No, he's in the kitchen." Xiao Gu turned around and pointed at the kitchen that was only covered by a curtain. "You're still not done? It's time to eat." Che and Yuan looked at his watch and said, "I'll call him. I'll go over and thank him as well." The beast laughed. Before they even got close to the kitchen, they heard the sound of vegetables being chopped like a storm. So fierce. Che and Yuan opened his mouth in surprise. Poplar fruit can't be using a kitchen knife to practice kung fu, right? Let's go and take a look, the beast said excitedly. Xiao Gu walked in front. She pulled open the curtain and walked into the steamy kitchen. "Sister Xiao Gu." Kiki was the first to notice her. She happily threw herself at her. Because Kiki had gotten her wish to touch the big bald head of the beast, Kiki now had a very good impression of Sister Xiao Gu. Xiao Gu giggled as he picked Chi-Chi up. Her attention was all on Kiki, but the beast was the first to notice that poplar fruit was struggling to cut up a pile of vegetables in front of him. Although it was said that he was struggling, in fact, poplar fruit didn't use much strength. His hands were very steady, and the sound of the kitchen knife on the chopping board became a string, like an assembly line machine. His left hand pushed an eggplant that had been cut in half onto the kitchen knife, and the other side had already been cut into small pieces of uniform size. "Wow!" Che and Yuan was the last to come in. He smiled and said, "Poplar fruit, what are you doing? Practicing the knife skills of cutting vegetables and melons?" Poplar fruit pulled the cut vegetables into the basket and washed them with water. At the same time, he poured oil into the pot and threw in 2 cloves of garlic. A rich aroma burst out. He smiled without turning his head and said, "Is it time to eat? Don't worry. Wait a minute. I'll be done soon. Today, I'll add more dishes." "You know how to cook?" Che and Yuan asked the beast question. The beast looked at poplar fruit in surprise. The big boy in front of him who wore a scarf and worked diligently and methodically. Was he really an executive of a big company with a market value of hundreds of millions? Papa's cooking is delicious. Kiki, who was being held by Xiao Gu, heard Che and Yuan's question and retorted with dissatisfaction. Soon, Che and Yuan and the others would no longer have any doubts. They saw poplar fruit pour the cut potatoes into the pot. He poured 3 plates of potatoes, stir-fried them with a long iron spatula, and then scooped them up. What happened next shocked and convinced them wholeheartedly. 5 or 6 cut eggplants were poured into the pot. Poplar fruit held the handle of the pot, which weighed more than 5 kilograms, with his left hand holding a cloth, and began to shake it flexibly over the fire. With so many ingredients, the beast felt that it would be difficult for him to stir-fry them with an iron spatula, let alone shake them. However, poplar fruit could easily shake them with one hand. The glossy eggplants flew into the air in groups, then rolled and steadily fell back into the pot. Such a big scene was probably not easy to see even in a big hotel, right? The most difficult thing to control when stir-frying a big pot was the heat and taste. But poplar fruit controlled it very well. So many eggplants were fried in the oil until each one was golden and glossy. Next, he added potatoes and green peppers to stir-fry. Among them, he had a lot of seasonings at his fingertips and added them as he pleased. At this time, the beast and the others would no longer question poplar fruit's cooking. At first glance, they could tell that he was a chef. How could his food be bad? By the way, what's that pot next to it? When poplar fruit divided the stir-fried stir-fry into different plates, the beast curiously pointed to the pot that was simmering with a lid and asked, "Red braised pork, almost done." Poplar fruit said with a smile. He reached out to adjust the pot and let it collect the juice on high heat. As soon as he opened the lid, the smell of meat immediately filled the air. A pot of fat, but not greasy, full of juice, and attractive red braised pork was out of the pot. The beast swallowed hard and nudged Changyuan, who was also drooling, and said, "Quick, go and call everyone over. Gather all the food from the 2 courtyards together. We're in for a treat today. Slurp. Today, we would like to thank Mr. Yang for making such a sumptuous meal for us. Cheers, everyone." At the big round table, the beast, who was the leader of the crew, raised his cup and shouted, "Cheers!" Everyone in the crew raised their cups to greet Poplar Fruit. "Thank you, everyone. With tea in place of wine, I also wish that our movie this time will be a success and hit 100 million views overnight." Poplar Fruit stood up and said with a smile, "Haha." The laughter at the table could not stop. Some people said that if one wanted to integrate into a circle, it would take a lot of effort, and sometimes the result would not be ideal. Poplar Fruit felt that Wan He Tiany's group of friends were too cute. They were bought over with just a meal, haha, that you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.